Hey everybody, welcome back to Backlog Banter. I'm your boy Abram, joined as usual by Tucker Hazel, and it is right now, as of the time of recording, January 1st, which means Tucker, we just finished
Yeah.
365 days of game playing, and we're here to tell you
Approximately.
our top 22 games of 2022. Does this mean by the time we get to 2054, we'll do our top 54 games of 2054? Maybe, or maybe the entire
You
fucking
fucking
planet
believe
will
it.
be underwater and we'll all be dead. But if we get there, we'll cross
But
that
let me
bridge
let me
when we
let you
get there.
know, everyone. The plan is to do the top 54 games
That
as it
is the
stands
plan.
right now.
That is the plan.
Heat death of the planet unforeseen.
Right. Climate change notwithstanding, we will do our top 54 games of 2020. No, of 2054, but Tucker.
Yes,
If
yes.
you want to tell me about your favorite games of the year, you do it right now on this fucking video recording. If the audience wants to
Oh
tell
yeah,
me their favorite games, they do that in the Discord link as usual. Top of the
and they
description or
should let
down
us know
there.
their top 22 as well.
Yeah. They should
This
also
is a
fucking
thing. Yeah.
like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell. I'm gonna say it right now, Tucker. This one's gonna be a little loosey goosey, but that's why these videos
Oh
are so
yeah.
fun. You know what I mean?
This goose is loose as hell, man.
Brother, is it ever? Here's what we're gonna do. Let's lay a couple ground rules as we get into the video here, because this is for the real community
Fine.
heads, right? This is for the BLB lore heads, right? This video is for them, so they
Mm-hmm.
don't care if we get a little bit silly as we get into it. I want to lay out the ground rules
Sure.
for you.
Yeah. This is
20
God's silliest goose.
God Silius Goose. He gives his biggest challenges to his Silius geese.
It's
22
true.
games.
And look at us.
Not all of these games released in 2022. That's not a stipulation. These are simply
Oh,
video
that'd
game
be
donkey.
ridiculous.
Yeah, video game donkey style. These are our top 22 games of the year. So if it came out 30 days ago or 30 years ago, it doesn't matter. It's eligible for this list. There's
True.
a couple things that aren't eligible for this list. The first thing is anything placed below spot 22 on your list. That's not eligible to be in your top 22.
Yeah, yeah. Unless you have some fuckery going on, you're like, oh, I
Right.
don't want this up here. I
Right.
gotta move things up.
The second stipulation that we must make is that these are first plays only. So any replays aren't eligible. We're going to rattle off some honorable mentions for various reasons. If we have, I've got some, I don't know if Tucker has any.
Yeah.
We'll share some honorable mentions. They'll get into the list proper, but it's very simple. If we played the game last calendar year for the first time, or let's stipulate that, if we beat the game for the first time last calendar year, because there's some games that I never beat in the past, returned to and beat and put on this list. As long as the game was completed for the first time in 2022, it's eligible. That's as simple as that. But Tucker, you want to spool up some MF honorable mentions before we get this party started? Do you have any?
Well, I need to make an unstipulation because you made a stipulation for the two of us that wasn't exactly correct. Is that I have multiple games on here that I haven't finished.
Oh, that's fine. Who gives a
And
shit?
I'll get to them as we get to the top
Yeah.
of the list. But there are some big ass games this year that I loved what I played of them, and I just school, life, friends.
Brother,
I know
that's
there are
fantastic.
other things I don't commonly engage in, but
Yes.
unfortunately, I sometimes do have to leave my dirty cell that I play my games in, and like what food, what social interaction, no. But yeah, it means that spoilers. Like I didn't finish Elden Ring. I didn't
Yeah.
finish Xenoblade 3, but they're still some of the best video game experiences I had this year. So I want to talk about them here,
That's fair.
especially because I've never talked about either of those games on this channel as far as I know.
Yeah, that's funny.
Which is kind of absurd. All right, but do I want to do honorable mentions?
Yeah.
If
you want to ponder them, I can give mine. You want to ponder? You need a minute to ponder?
Yeah, I'll ponder for a little bit. Yeah.
Ponder for a minute.
Yeah.
Let me shoot out a couple here that I want to shoot out. The first I want to shoot out is Luminous Remastered. Now, Luminous is a game I'm really not very good at, but I bought it Black Friday, and I played 10 hours of it in about 2 days. I was bitten
God's
by
Darkest Friday.
I was bitten by that fucking Luminous bug because I had played this game a long time ago, and I was like, I don't get it. I don't understand. And for the first,
I'm in the same boat.
Yeah, for the first hour of my run back of Luminous, I didn't understand it still. But as soon as it clicked and I started figuring out the patterns, I'm like, this is the first non-Tetris arcade puzzler that feels like it's not trying to just be Tetris in some manner. It's following block, but it goes to me even further beyond like Puyo Puyo has a very like Tetris-esque like feel to me. This is very, very different. And of course, it's a Tetsuya Mizuguchi game, so it makes me want to shake my ass to that soundtrack and the graphical style and everything. It's amazing.
Makes me want to fucking Roomba.
But I also just want to shout out that Jean, then, she doesn't play a lot of games, but when she finds a game she likes, she really plays a ton of it. She has
Yeah.
played about
She's like the Dos Equis guy for games. She doesn't game often, but when
right.
she does.
Yeah.
What's the rest of the I don't even know the
I
rest of
don't
the line.
remember. I don't remember.
When was the
But
last time you saw a Dos Equis ad?
10 years ago.
Leave in the comments below.
But she played 10, no, sorry, not 10 hours. I played 10 hours. She played 30 hours of Luminous in the past week. So just shout out to Luminous in general. I also want
Yeah.
to make a quick shout out to a game called Magical Poppin', which I want to shout out mostly because I don't think
that's
many
right.
people have heard about it, and I want to give it its accolades.
No.
It doesn't quite make my top 22, but it's this amazing action platformer on Super Famicom that has such
Yeah.
smooth movement and combat that it doesn't feel like it belongs on system at all. It's quite short. I highly recommend you don't buy it because it's the only way people really know this game is as one of the most expensive Super Famicom games. Like it's thousands and thousands.
Oh,
thousands
that's
of
right.
dollars.
Yeah, it's like $1,700.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So find an alternate way to play. Let's just say that.
Yeah. BLB does not necessarily endorse you spending like a chunk of your life savings on a fucking Super Famicom cartridge.
I
would not do that.
I do endorse WarioWare Smooth Moves, which is playing that with you this summer. Was some of the most fun I've had playing a local multiplayer experience in a long time. There are some videos of that on the channel, so you should go hunt those down. That game is a fucking riot.
It's true.
And then I also just want to shout out Kid Icarus Uprising, which just barely misses the bottom of my list. But I do love Kid Icarus Uprising. We have done a whole video about the history of Kid Icarus, so I'm not going to not going to go any further into that here. And I've also written about the game pretty extensively in Ninty Fresh Magazine, which you can go check out also. But those are the honorable mentions I just wanted to check out into the world before we got into the list.
Yeah. Fair. What I'm going to do with my honorable mentions here is not actually talk about the games that didn't make my list, like barely, like in the 25s area. But it's talk about a couple games that I just didn't get the chance to talk about on this channel because we haven't been doing actual backlog banter videos in a while. So I played a game called A Little to the Left where you just organize things. There's little small puzzles of beautiful hand-drawn art style. And you finish a little puzzle and sometimes a cat comes by and he like messes with it. And it's got great music. It's got a ton of puzzles and it's really simple, unique, and fun. So highly recommend that. I almost got every trophy in a game called Kill It With Fire, which is on Xbox Game Pass. In which there are spiders in different locations and you just kill them with insane weapons that destroy the environment around you. But as long as you kill the spiders, that's okay. And I don't personally endorse spider killing in real life. I'm a fan of arachnids myself. But it's a fun little game. And what else? Let's talk about Stacking. I beat Stacking a couple days ago, which is a 2011 game by Double Fine where you play as like little babushka dolls. What's the Russian word? Matryoshka? Something like that.
I have no fucking idea.
Little stacking dolls. And
nesting
you play as a
dolls.
little guy. His name's Connor. Yeah, sure. Russian nesting dolls. And you play as a little guy named Connor, and you can hop into anybody who's bigger than you. And they each of the dolls have different abilities that interact with puzzles around them. And it's got this like 1920s old silent cinema aesthetic where all the cutscenes are presented through like intertitles and they've got ragtime music and it's really unique. There's nothing like it. And also the story's about stopping child enslavement. So, I support that. And Stacking is a weird game that nobody fucking talks about that game. Nobody does. But yeah, I played some weird games this year. I didn't get a chance to talk about them. There's a couple of them. Also, I don't know if we're gonna do a video about it, but I played and beat Hey Pikmin this year, and that game's not as bad as people say.
Yeah, I really wanted to play it this break, and then it's for the BLB lore heads, as you know, half my shit is locked in my dorm room right now, and that includes my 3DS and Hey Pikmin. So beginning of the year, knock that one out. But I'm excited to play it.
No, you won't.
Oh,
don't believe that for a second.
All right, you ready to get into the
Continue. All right, we're moving on.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing it.
Oh, can I give a dishonorable mention?
Sure, fine. If you're doing that, then I'll give a dishonorable mention.
I'm going to give 2 dishonorable mentions because I think it'll be funny. I want to give a dishonorable mention to my least favorite game of the year, and then one that just really rubbed me the wrong way. My least favorite game of the year was House of the Dead Remake. House of the Dead remake, how they
Sure.
got that one past the goalie, I have no fucking idea.
Uh,
It plays so poorly on Switch because of gyro drift and various things. At a certain extent, to a certain extent, the game's issues are not entirely the fault of Forever Entertainment because they just basically
yeah.
asked the Switch's hardware to perform in ways that it really can't. But even
Hmm.
beyond that, it's really just it strips a lot of the life out of House of the Dead. So I really did not fuck with that game at all. I think I gave it like a 3 for Ninty Fresh. It's I think one of the lowest reviews I've ever given in my entire life. The other dishonorable mention I want to
Yeah.
give is to Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, 2022.
Interesting. Yeah, we didn't get a chance to talk about that.
My least favorite COD game that I played this year was Vanguard, just because I think Vanguard is boring. Um,
That's true. You did technically play that this year.
yeah, Modern Warfare 2 has two of my favorite FPS missions of all time. The one where you're jumping between that convoy, like Uncharted 4 style, and then the one where you are on the boat with the cargo containers moving back and forth. There are really good
Sure,
set
that's a
pieces
good
in
one.
this
Yeah.
game, but I personally found its insistence on shoving like Last of Us crafting and various like one-off mechanics in the game to be quite annoying. And on a most personal
Hmm.
level, I found its politics to be really fucking abhorrent, and I hated that post-credit scene, which I won't spoil, but
Really
basically
funny. Really
immediately
funny.
tanked what enjoyment I had of the game through the floorboards.
Uh,
So I totally get why people like Modern Warfare 2. It's beautiful. It's high fidelity. When those missions are good, they're really fucking good. But I didn't like it. So those are my two dishonorable mentions I
that's
wanted to
fair.
give.
Yeah. My dishonorable mentions actually most of the games that are bad games that I played this year I got a chance to talk about on BLB.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess during the times we were doing BLB, I was playing most of the bad games I was playing.
Yeah.
A number of them being Sonic and Kirby games, which I did talk about on that show.
Yeah.
But one that I played just a couple days ago that I don't really understand how it has the like fan base and acclaim it has is a game called I Made a Game with Zombies in it. Um, that is free on Steam. And it's Vampire Survivors but worse. And I don't think that game is good. That's really all I have to say there. Oh,
Sure.
also, a sad dishonorable mention because I think obviously people like this game, but I really found it frustrating and boring. But Ooblets, I got a review code for that game and I played like 6 hours of it, and I'm like, this is not as good as Stardew or Animal Crossing, and it's not as good as Pokemon, and like the crossover between the two doesn't really work that well. But on concept, I was so sold on Ooblets,
Yeah.
but I found that game to be really, really disappointing. But this is not. Let me repeat. This is not the time to
No.
be downer Debras. No, this is the time to be cheerful. Chucks, you know.
Chippersons.
Yeah. We're gonna talk about our favorite games. Do
Yeah.
you want to start off? Because I just did some dishonorable shit.
Yeah. Tucker, you do a lot of dishonorable shit.
Yeah,
But let me
mostly
begin.
off camera, but occasionally
Yeah.
it drips into the BLB content.
Let me begin at my number 22 of the day, which is Downwell. Now, Downwell is a game that I have played.
Oh my god!
I've played for many of the waking years of my life. I think I played it for the first
Yeah.
time back on PS Vita when it came out. Might have been Steam first. I don't remember exactly which one. But I've played this game for a long time. But I was so bad at Downwell for a while that I didn't actually know that it had an ending. I thought the game just kind of kept going and kept going. But I was so fucking
Yeah.
poor that I didn't realize the game was even finite. But after beating Point P, which, spoiler alert, we'll talk about much higher on this list, I wanted
Yes, we
to go
will.
back and give Downwell the proper beating it deserved. And I did. And I ended up really loving the game. It is quite a challenging title, but that challenge factor just makes that completion so much more rewarding. When I beat that game,
Yeah.
fucking drenched in sweat and squeezing my arse cheeks together, it was one of the most satisfying moments of the year for me. So I love the spooky little guys at Downwell. I love the sort of one more run nature of it. I think that Ojiro
Yeah.
Furumoto is just an awesome developer and creator, and we'll talk about him again later on the list.
Absolutely. My number 23 is a game that I played quite early this year that I burned through very quickly. A game simply known as Horizon Zero Dawn. I didn't expect to like this game as much as I did, because the classic thing about Horizon is it just got overshadowed by Breath of the Wild. And yeah, it's not as good as Breath of the Wild, but
Yeah.
good lord, does it have a much more interesting world and story than Breath of the Wild, because where Breath of the Wild does with its physics, what is it called? Oh, Horizon. Horizon Zero Dawn does with its storytelling and its world building. This crazy ideas that it's playing with, and it's got this really deep world of themes and what on in the history, and you learn more about Aloy. And I didn't get around to playing Forbidden West. Presumably my PS5 will work when I start that game.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna get to that game next year for Forbidden West, and considering the upgrades that, as I know, culturally, that were made from her. God, these games are so fucking
Zero Dawn to Forbidden West.
Zero Dawn to Forbidden West. Movement upgrades, combat upgrades, obviously looking better. I think that game could be one of my favorites, but I haven't played it yet. Yeah. But Zero Dawn really did surprise me with how much I became enraptured in the combat systems, in learning about the world, and it was quite remarkable.
Yeah, I love the art direction of Horizon games. The gameplay doesn't do much for me, but I've only played Zero Dawn. And now I've got a working PS5 again with Horizon installed on it. So I'm excited to try Forbidden West, because I think a lot of the gameplay changes and improvements are going to make me interested in the series the way you are.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Also, shout out to my friend Katie, who's the biggest Horizon fan I know.
Shout out to the Horizon franchise in general. I mean, within the next 2 years or 3 years, it's going to be the biggest franchise that Sony has going for them. They got 4 games in the works and a fucking TV series or whatever.
Yeah,
Jesus
allegedly.
Christ.
And a cool Lego set. I will say, I want that Lego set.
Allegedly. Really cool. We don't want to be the tall neck. God damn, that's one of the coolest things that Legos ever made.
Yeah, it's really
crazy.
Awesome. My next
where are we going next?
Is 21, and I think it'll come back up later on your list, but my 21st game is Pikmin 2.
Finally drink. Oh.
Pikmin 2 I actually don't think is old enough to drink. But I really enjoyed Pikmin 2. We've talked about this previously on the channel, and we'll talk about Pikmin again, both on my list and your list. But I just think that this is such a whimsical and clever sequel with just so many.
It's a whimsical game. Yeah.
Yeah. The narrative framing I think is lovely. The sort of collectible progression I think is maybe better than Pikmin 1 in certain key ways. The fun of finding all these little treasures, and the Pikmin find a battery. What the fuck would a battery be to a little guy, right? I think that the world building in this game is so strong. So yeah, it was part of my Pikmin. This is a big Pikmin primer year, because now we're in the year of our Lord Pikmin 4. That's my Lord, not Jesus. Yes. Pikmin 4.
Exactly. Yeah.
And Pikmin 2 is the only.
What am I supposed to say? Pikmin 4? It's an Infinity War reference right there.
I didn't even get that one.
Pikmin 2.
Good game.
You remember Peter Quill saying, "What am I supposed to say? Jesus?"
No.
Joke. There's a whole great scene. Hey, you motherfucker. All right. Let's talk. You know what? We haven't done BLB in a while. And you know what we love on BLB? Is a good old-fashioned rock block. And that's what we're doing right now. We're doing a Pikmin rock block. Because Pikmin 1 is the 20... Let me make sure. No, wait, hold on. Oh, fuck! No, sorry. Yeah. I got another game in between there. I just got really excited. I saw Pikmin really close to it on my list. But actually, my 21st game is a game that I haven't finished yet. Full disclosure, but what I have played is... Oh, Tucker's a fucking fake gamer. Goddamn. What I have played is some of the most inventive game design I've ever experienced, and I do expect it to go up if when I do end up finishing the game. But Inscription is a game I heard so much about, but simultaneously so little about, because the point of that game is people being like, just trust me. Just fucking play it. You want to know as little as you can going in. Just trust me, bro. And it's one of the first just trust me that's actually worked for me, because this game is a card game. It is roguelike, but it is so much more than that. And it unveils so many weird narrative and game design and mechanical layers to itself. And then 2 or 3 times throughout the game, it just says, fuck you, and changes into a totally different type of game. And that is wild. And not only does it have its own unique visual style and it's great card battling mechanics, it's just a really unique game from every facet. And I'm in the middle of Act 2 right now. And I like Act 2 a lot less than I like Act 1. But I want to see where it ends. Because I don't want to talk about the game in its spoiler mode. I don't know how it ends. I don't know what changes are coming in the future. But when I was sitting there and I finished my first run of Act 1 and what happens at the end of that happens, I'm like, what? what the fuck is going on? So Inscription gets a hearty recommend from me now on Switch. I was added to Switch in December, which is when I bought it. I actually gave it a concerted effort, and yeah, people weren't lying to me, which I respect.
I'm very excited.
Don't like being lied to. Don't do it.
I'm very excited to get that to that one in the new year. My number 20 is maybe two games if you're a shit eater, but if you believe in the power of lock-on technology, it's a single title. And
Sonic and Knuckles, yeah.
This, of course, is Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles.
Yeah. Oh, wait, yeah, my bad.
Yeah.
I forgot 3 in there.
I think you could give this spot in general to Sonic Origins, which I might just do, which is how I played this game in general. But I will hyper focus on Sonic 3 and Knuckles as one, arguably two, but in my opinion, one game is one games. I
like that. That's a good middle ground.
Yeah. I think that for me, Sonic 3 and Knuckles is where the Genesis series really reaches its apex. For a lot of people, it's 2, but for me, it's 3, because I think that maybe 2, as much as I love it, those last couple zones aren't quite as good as those first ones, I don't think. But for me, Sonic 3 and Knuckles is this just big globe-trotting adventure through all these really confident motifs. You got your mushroom forests, you got your winter tundras, you're going into these little Egyptian tombs. I love that spirit of sort of exploration. And I think that this game does a nice job of having the big Sonic set-piece speed sections, but also some of these slower platforming moments. So the end result for me is the sort of grandiose Sonic Genesis platformer that I really, really appreciate. Could I probably blitz through Sonic 1 and 2 faster and get a little hit of Sonic? Yes, but I like the sort of overall package that 3 and Knuckles is even more, and that soundtrack is good soundtrack. Now, of course, I know that the soundtrack in Origins is not the original Sonic 3 soundtrack, but I even like the new one. Let me be honest with you.
That's
so Sonic 3 and Knuckles.
I know it's uncommon, but it's allowed.
It's allowed.
Yeah. I played that game too, and I also think it's the best Genesis Sonic game. Specifically at the and Knuckles part. I had a few moments in Sonic 3 that I notoriously was very frustrated at.
Yeah.
But, all right, it's time for we're returning to the Pikmin rock block that was separated by 2 games, but fuck you, it's a rock block anyway. Pikmin 1, I played on my Wii U. I played it with them MF motion controls, with my Wiimote. And God, Pikmin is just there's nothing like it. And I would like to quote from my own review if I can find it here. Oh shit. Oh, here it is. I said, this is a game about babysitting 100 little morons. It's still very fun though. Yeah. And my thoughts about Pikmin 1 are that this is one of the greatest game ideas and world ideas and little character ideas that I've ever experienced. But the reason that I only have Pikmin 1 as low as it is on my list is that it is a game that I think needed polishing. It's a game that I think needed it just sanded down. It needed more development time. But what they have here is still one of my favorite gaming experiences I've ever had, and I'm happy to say that I know you do as well, but I like all the Pikmin games. I even enjoyed Hey Pikmin, which I mentioned earlier. And God, yeah, I really hope that Pikmin 1 and 2 come back in some capacity, because they really are special games, and they are different all 3 different experiences, or the 2 of them are different experiences from 3. The trilogy stands so separately, which is so cool, and you can see where one succeeds and the other one fails. And for me, Pikmin 1 is at the bottom of that, but it's a really, really fun game. I just wish the Pikmin AI was better.
Yeah.
I'm so fucking tired of crossing a bridge and just having like half of them just like walk into water for literally no fucking reason. I'm like, all right, you know what? Fuck it.
You make a point there that I really agree, and part of the reason why I love the Pikmin trilogy so much is that each game is quite remarkably different. There's certain franchises where you play a newer entry and there's really no reason to go back to what came before, but that's not the case for Pikmin. Even Pikmin 2, which is in my opinion the weakest for my preferences, it's still so wonderfully unique in that it has these pseudo-procedural caves, and there's a completely different emphasis on challenge and exploration in a different respect than Pikmin 1 from 3, and they all just kind of exist to where no matter which Pikmin game you put as your favorite, you've got an equal footing, and I think that's quite remarkable, even though there are pretty objective improvements to the gameplay as you go along in terms of AI and things, and they all still have this unique zest to them, which I really appreciate.
Yeah.
My next game is this 19? My number is a little bit wrong on the list compared to what I'm saying. I think it's 19.
Still mine. It's okay.
Is Ollie
Just keep
Ollie
going.
World.
We'll figure it out.
Ollie Ollie
Oh my
World
god.
is awesome. It is a lot of ways almost similar to Sonic in that it's a momentum-based platformer, but it's dissimilar to Sonic in the fact that I already consider myself to be Shadow the Hedgehog in real life, right? I embody these characters and live out their lives. The life I wish I lived out but can't is the life of a skater. I can get on a skateboard and I can skate around, but I can't do any tricks. The one time I tried, I thought I broke my elbow. I didn't, but I couldn't move my arm for a week, and it scared me. What's great to me about Ollie Ollie World is that it's almost this sort of power fantasy for me. What if I could be a good skateboarder?
Sure, interesting. I like that.
Which is really fun on a subjective level, but at the same time, the idea of fantasy applies to this game so well because this world, and I've had the opportunity to speak to people who work at Roll7 about this game, which is a real privilege, and they're sort of talking to me about this idea of like, Ollie Ollie World is like the amorphous idea of skate culture immortalized as a real place. So like frog guys and little characters and worlds made out of beehives and all kinds of shit. It's so eclectic and wonderful and satisfying mechanically, in addition to being satisfying personally, that I just super vibe with Ollie Ollie World, I suppose, in a way that the past games never really interested me. I think the imagination of that art style is a really part of what draws me to the game, and then it's that really great arcade gameplay that keeps me around.
Yeah.
Great game.
Keeps me going. Yeah. Oh God. BLB has a few notorious things about me, Tucker Hazel. Number one is that Kirby, man, Kirby, those fucking games, man, they frustrate me. I play a fucking lot of them, and they almost all annoy me. They bug me. But Kirby the Forgotten Land fixed everything. Like, all the problems that I had with those previous games, all of my complaints, I finally found the Kirby game that took my issues and just polished them away and showed me that HAL Laboratory has something else to them. Because frankly, even though they make a lot of games, I, up to this point, don't know if I would have called HAL, at least from my taste, a very successful developer. Because they were, at least from my perspective, so stale. That Kirby's definitely one of those franchises where, for the most part, a lot of these games are kind of similar, and they even though it's been like 20 fucking years, they haven't really evolved that much. But they finally made the jump to 3D. Godspeed. The N64 and PS1 are a long past, but Kirby, the year of our Lord 2022, finally makes that jump to the third dimension, and he lands it beautifully. I mean, I like Mario 64 quite a bit, but I think that for a 2D to 3D jump, Kirby and the Forgotten Land is just astronomically better for me than the other Kirby games. And for a collectathon 3D platformer, for a game with lots of unique level design, having the Waddle Hub world, Kirby the Forgotten World Land, whatever. It's 3D Land, 3D World. Is just a remarkable game, and I'm really, really excited to see where HAL goes next, because they've made a very bold step for themselves of really taking their game design to the next level. And I consider myself a modern Kirby fan, a very modern Kirby fan. I don't even mean like a modern Kirby fan in terms of like starting with the Wii or Wii U. No, I mean like 2022 modern. So that's where me and that pink puff sort of like shake hands. I like shake that little lumpy stump that he's got on his body.
I hate Kirby and Forgotten Land. My 18th favorite game of 2022 is Pikmin 1. We're back to Pikmin.
Holy Christ.
Yeah. I'll talk very briefly about it, because we're not done talking about Pikmin, I know, based on what game you haven't spoken about yet. But for me, Pikmin 1 is remarkable in that it does a lot right to feel unique despite its issues, as we were just saying, actually. But to elaborate on that point I was making before, the Pikmin AI is not very good, but for me, there's almost a bit of fun in that friction of the Pikmin being a little bit dumb and having to work around their constraints and what they can do with Olimar. And it can be frustrating, but when you get into the groove of Pikmin 1, there's a nice tempo to, I want to attack this guy, or I want to grab this thing, but I gotta fuck with the Pikmin in just this way. To me, that little bit of friction is fun. It sort of ups the sense of survival and challenge of the experience. alongside the idea of having to find all your ship parts before you lose. And for me, that is a challenge that is reasonable and doable, but never oppressive. When I play Pikmin 1, I
Yeah.
don't feel like I'm ever going to lose. But this is the first time that I actually won. Not because in the past I lost, but because in the past I never just beat the game. And so this
Yeah.
was a fun year of finishing the first two Pikmin games that I had played,
Yeah.
enjoyed, but put down. But end of 2 years ago now, when I played Pikmin 3 Deluxe and finished it, I was like, gotta
Mhm.
finish up the series now, and I have, and I'm
Absolutely.
primed. Tucker from Most Anticipated Game of 2023. Can't
Yeah.
fucking wait for it. As I tweeted this morning,
It's the year
unless
of Pikmin
Nintendo
4,
is
baby.
run by fraudsters and dream crushers, as of the time of recording, there's only a maximum of 364 more days without that game. So
That's a great point. And
yeah.
and every day you'll keep that counter of like, okay, it can only come out in this time frame. And
That
it
would
keeps
be
getting
a
smaller, so it means it's coming sooner.
oh my god, Tucker, that'd be a
It'll be
really good
what?
bit. That'd be a really good bit if I tweeted that every day.
I don't agree. I don't like those kind of daily bits, but it would be a bit you could do.
Because usually what I
Let's
do for
put
a
it
game
there.
I'm
Let's
really
leave it there.
excited about, I've done this twice now. For a game I'm really excited about, there's this picture of a cat standing up in like his basket and screaming. And for like the
Oh yeah.
for 5 days until a game, like I did for Halo, and I think maybe Splatoon I did for this year. I'll take the picture of the cat's face and zoom in on it a little bit more for 5 days. Maybe I should do that for
Sure. Yeah.
364 days.
Jesus Christ.
Give me your next game.
Um. All right, monkey game time. I actually played a fucking Ape Escape game. We've
Okay.
memed about Ape Escape for a long time.
Yeah.
But I actually finally not only played but finished Ape Escape 1 on the
Nice.
PS1, but through PS Plus Premium. And I love this game. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a game that does early 3D platforming different from anything else.
Yeah.
And it's frankly a game that I would really love to see come back in a modernized capacity. There's a lot of these older Sony franchises that have dropped off since the PS2 days. And Ape Escape is one of the more unique ones because
Yeah.
even as a 3D platformer, it's not about the platforming. It's about hunting these monkeys and each of them
Yeah.
having their own personality, or excuse me, apes. Sorry. They have their own personalities. Each one in itself is kind of a puzzle, and it's like if each star in Mario 64 or Shine in Mario Sunshine or Jiggy in Banjo-Kazooie was a puzzle in itself. The
Yeah.
challenge isn't getting to the ape, though there are environmental puzzles. You do have to do platforming. It's about the puzzle being the reward, and there's so much personality and charm. Ape Escape 1 is a time travel game, so you're going from Jurassic fucking Park to ancient China or whatever, and then over to the future. And it's got some of the worst voice acting I've ever heard. But
Yeah.
fun level design, really fun animation. Ape Escape 1 is a game that really holds up better than I expected it to. And I'm certainly interested and excited to have access and play the other Ape Escape games because this is a franchise people don't really talk about. I mean, frankly, the only reason I know about it is Spike being in PlayStation All Stars. So I want to be the Ape Escape guy, not because I own On the Loose on PSP, but because I've actually played the games, and
Yeah.
now I've started that journey.
I started Ape Escape and then I said I don't like the controls and I stopped Ape Escape. And I think that's one of the most
Yeah,
unfair things I've done to a game all year. Because I think if I just take a little time,
maybe. Yeah,
if I take a little bit of time to just rock with it, I think I'd really like Ape Escape also. Especially the way you talk about it. It's
sure.
it's a game with silly little cartoon animals and you run around and you catch them with a butterfly net. If that's not up my alley, I don't know what
Yeah,
is. So I want to give it another shot for sure.
but also you could just hop into like 2, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like on another whole generation of consoles, so I probably might dive with you better. I don't know how different the controls are. Full disclosure, because I haven't played the fucking video game. So
I have heard, part of my hesitation though is I have heard that game runs very poorly on PS5. Something about issues with emulation of
yeah,
PS2 games on
PS5.
PS5, which I don't,
Yeah,
I feel like I'm out of my depth speaking on that really, but I need to do a little research
yeah,
into that.
sure.
My next game continues the Sonic trend, and this is a Sonic game that most people haven't played, and that is Sonic the Hedgehog Triple Trouble 16-bit. This is
Oh, that's right.
a fan game made by a gentleman named Noah Copeland, who I had the opportunity to speak to for a piece I wrote for Time Extension. He is an awesome, awesome guy and a really smart game designer. Because what this is a quote unquote remake of Sonic the Hedgehog
Mm-hmm.
Triple Trouble, which is a Game Gear game. But what it really is, as we were discussing when I talked to him, it's a reimagining, almost in the vein of like a Final Fantasy VII remake type situation, wherein these are the bones
Yeah,
of Triple Trouble, but these are the bones how you remember them to be through a nostalgic lens,
sure.
not how they actually are
Yeah,
in reality. Because the sum of Triple Trouble 16 bits parts is an incredibly smooth and precise and well designed and modern feeling Sonic game. I think you would love Triple Trouble 16 bit because Noah Copeland has synthesized lessons learned from so many different Sonic games, but then pulled in ideas from places you would never expect. A big touchstone for
mm-hmm.
him was God of War 2018 because the entirety of Sonic Triple Trouble 16 bit is continuous. The level transitions and zone transitions and the narrative beats between take Sonic on a
Mm-hmm.
single interactive journey through the entire experience. And some of these
That's
stage
cool. That's
transitions
cool.
become levels as you end one zone by jumping on a rocket that's flying up to the death egg, and then in midair you're doing a boss fight and things. It's a very
Cool.
cinematic
Cool.
and really modern feeling Sonic title, and I truly believe that it is on the level of quality of Sonic Mania. I'm 100%
Yeah,
believe that. So I implore
I
people,
believe you.
yeah, it's free. You can run it on very low end machines. Go download this game. Very easy to plug in a
Mhm.
controller and have it work out of the exe file. Go play Sonic Triple Trouble 16 bit.
That's fucking awesome. That's a great pull.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's return to the Pikmin rock block. Except
Oh
fuck you, this is
fuck.
Tinykin. Nope, it's
Oh,
not
oh.
Pikmin 2. We're talking about
Okay. All
Tinykin.
right.
Because Tinykin is 2022's Pikmin game. Because
Yeah.
for one of the first times in game history, someone actually took inspiration from Pikmin in terms of its mechanics. And they put Pikmin style mechanics and collectathon elements onto a 3D platformer.
Yeah.
Like a Mario 64 style 3D platformer. You just have these little sandbox worlds that you bump around in, and you play as a very small guy, and he's got very small little squishy dudes that he throws at people. And it's really fun to see the idea of collecting these little creatures and using them to carry stuff be placed into a new game style.
Yeah.
Because Pikmin is a franchise that people like, but isn't drawn inspiration from very often. And frankly, I think it does some things that Pikmin could learn from. There are more environmental uses for the Tinykin, or they're not Pikmin, but the
Yeah.
Tinykin themselves. Like they can stack and build a tower that you can climb up. Like they can be used for traversal, and they like conduct electricity in rows that you like make by yourself instead of them just like doing it like glomming onto something and completing the wire or whatever. Tinykin is a game with fantastic music, really unique visual style. It's not particularly long. It's really fun to 100%. A really good sense of personality and fun because these characters are always saying silly things. They're like religious wars going on in the background between these little bugs and stuff. Like it's a weird game. It's wild, but it's so snappy and unique. And you ride around a little soap bar for your sprint. What more could you ask for?
Yeah, this is a game that I didn't play purely because I didn't have the time for it. I really think I'll love
Yeah.
this one also when I get a chance to get around to it.
I beat this game in one day. I went 100% into this game in one day. So it's obviously not very well. Okay, it took me like 6.5 hours. So it's not like bite sized. But if you don't want to go for 100%, I say 4 hours. So that's a day or weekend game for you.
I believe it's
That
on
I think
Switch.
you will adore. I think you'll love
Yeah.
the game.
I think it's on Switch.
Is
I'm
it?
tempted
Is it
to.
for real?
I'm tempted to actually just buy it on Switch. I know it's on Game Pass, but I'm tempted to just buy it on Switch to play on my flight. Actually, to be honest, because that's the one I really want to check out. I could be smoking meth.
Oh, it is. You're right.
But
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Yeah, no,
I also just want
that's
to put a
meth.
game on your
That's
radar.
not meth. Don't worry.
We'll put a game on your radar. It's called The Wild at Heart. This is another game
Okay.
that is famously inspired by Pikmin.
Is it based on the David Lynch movie?
No. That
Okay.
Arlo loves. Shout out Ben Hayho. Ben Hayho also loves The Wild at Heart.
Arlo,
I
fuck
think this is a
yourself.
game. It's another game you should check out. My next title, Tucker, is one that you'll be pleased to know is on my list, and that is Katamari Damacy Reroll.
Oh, I didn't realize that made your list.
Yeah.
Jeepers.
Katamari Damacy Reroll is, again, the sort of game that's right up my alley. Silly, gameplay-focused title about just random shit happening. There is
Yeah.
something so satisfying to me, despite my control issues, which the more I think about the game, the more I come to your side on of it's a necessary design decision. But even when I'm struggling against those
Hmm.
controls a little bit, the satisfaction of going from a little guy with my Katamari can barely pick up a fucking thimble and being frustrated to being so big that I'm rolling up houses is such an empowering gameplay loop that just makes me happy.
Yeah.
It's a sort of game that I think is universally interesting just to look at. Like I was playing it
Yeah,
when
absolutely.
I was playing it this summer when John and I were living together, and she was watching, and she'd be like, "I want to play this game. This is funny because it is funny. It's just a funny game,
Yeah.
and it sounds great and it's wacky." And I'm like, "Oh boy,
God, the soundtrack.
I want to stick a cow to a tugboat and then stick that to a fucking yard flamingo, and that's how I win the game." That's a great concept.
Hmm.
And there's
Yeah.
rumors that next Katamari Forever reroll is maybe
We Love Katamari is the
okay.
next one. There might
So
be. I will lose my goddamn shit if we get a We Love Katamari reroll.
it's
That game
possible.
is probably better than Damacy.
Yeah.
God, Jesus Christ, Almighty, Lord above.
Shout out comment
Oh
comment
God, I love Katamari.
Badabadi.
God. Oh man. Is that it? Are you? Can I
Yeah.
have something else?
Yeah. You fucking
All right. We're returning to the Sonic Rock Block. The only Sonic game that made my
okay.
top 22. The only Sonic game I really personally like, which is Sonic Frontiers,
Nice.
which stepped Sonic into the next generation. You know, they've tried a lot of goddamn things with Sonic, but for me, for the first time, this is the first time that Sonic's gameplay style, the speed, has been transformed into something that does feel more modern. And when I was first playing the game, that was a criticism of mine. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is ripping off. It's ripping off Breath of the Wild. It's ripping off Assassin's Creed. What the hell is going on here? Crappy ass combat. Why are they just like taking everything from like Unity and just like using the assets? But the more that I played that game, the more I recognized the reverence that the creators had for the history of Sonic, the ups and downs that Sonic has had. Like it is a self-referential game. It is a bold new creative decision for putting Sonic into an open world and saying that this is going to be what the future of the series is. That I've always watched Sonic kind of just like, at least for our lifetimes, flounder and sometimes like come up for air like colors, generations, mania. But like for the most part, it's just like them just like trying new shit that doesn't work, and like they never like stick with it and never try it again. They never grow. But this Frontiers was a game that I was hopelessly addicted to and almost got the fucking platinum for, because I just didn't want to put it down. And nothing, like every time I went home, I'm like, I can't wait to like get home and like continue just like fucking around in Sonic. And frankly, that's something I never thought I would say, because we played a lot of Sonic games this year, and I liked Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and I also like 3D Blast more than your average bear. But Sonic Frontiers is the first time that a Sonic game has ever like cracked my favorites.
Nice.
And so much like Kirby, I'm a modern Sonic fan.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say I feel the same way about Frontiers. There's a whole video about that, which is worth listening to. But there's more Sonic to come on my list, so
Yep.
don't worry, little head.
It's worthless. Ning too.
Tonic. So we could talk about some more Sonic, because my next game is also a 3D Sonic game, and it's my favorite 3D Sonic game, and that's Sonic Generations. Isn't it funny how that works out?
Yeah.
I think Sonic Generations is a really, really great tribute to the series that I think sort of pays off more the more love the franchise you have and the more of the motifs you know.
Sure.
And in a lot of ways, it's basically like a legacy sequel. He's going to do something. God knows what he's doing, but here's what I'll say. It's like a legacy sequel. Sort of similar to the way that one might love Top Gun Maverick is similar to the way that you might love Sonic Generations. Or say
Yeah,
Force
don't worry, I was listening
Awakens.
the whole time.
Yeah, or Force Awakens, or
Yeah.
anything that is really in this legacy cool sphere. And does that make it particularly ambitious? Maybe not, but it makes it really, really fun. And the way you speak about self-referentiality as sort of like an element of Sonic Frontiers it is the core of Sonic Generations. But at the same time, I still
Yeah.
think that it's sort of bold in its reinvention of a lot of these classic Sonic zones and motifs for 3D, and it just plays really, really smoothly. Whereas I don't feel like the majority of 3D Sonic games do. So definitely check out
Mhm.
Generations. You can basically find it everywhere. You can find it under a rock. I believe you can. I believe you can play it 4K 60 on Series X, which is pretty cool. But I played it on Steam. So
Wait. Oh, hold on. Okay, I was just about to buy it on Steam.
yeah,
Notoriously, it doesn't work well on
yeah,
Steam Deck. But if it's on sale on Xbox right now, I'll go buy it there because I'd
yeah,
much rather play it on somewhere when it runs well.
yeah.
I'm very interested in that game.
Yeah,
I just bought Sonic Adventure 2, so
yeah.
it was only 250 on
Yeah,
that
those
Steam
games are
store.
always so fucking cheap on Steam sale. So, okay, maybe your
Yeah.
next game.
Okay, I'll continue my research into buying Sonic Generations on Xbox later, at a later
Okay.
date. My next game is the first game in a franchise that I played, and I became hopelessly addicted to it for approximately a week and a half, which is Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes, my very first Muso game, and guess what? It's not the gameplay that I like. You fucking kidding me? Gameplay? Why would I like that? I don't know. Like, what? X, X, I
Yeah.
believe, is how the combat
You're
goes.
describing why I don't like this game, by the
But,
way.
yes. But, that doesn't matter. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't like the gameplay of Fire Emblem anyway. So, what are you going to do? Make it play X? It's no different than just like, what? Move, stick, and character go to another square? It's fucking boring. But I can't wait for Engage. That's
I
in
can't
3
either.
weeks. Goddamn.
Very
But
soon.
Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes did introduce me to a new gameplay style that I didn't love, as I'm saying, but I did enjoy enough to
Yeah.
carry me through playing this game for 35 hours, whatever, how much I put into it. But what I did find is that Koei Tecmo or sorry, Ninja Theory,
Omega
Ninja Force,
Force.
Ninja Team
Omega
Ninja.
Force. Omega
Fuck,
Force. Omega
they're all
Force.
the same. Ninja Force. Omega Force has learned from not only their many Muso games, but
Yeah.
also from what Intelligent Systems has done with Fire Emblem in terms of creating a hub world and creating lots of ways for you to upgrade your characters and get to know them through interacting with them in this little village. And it is the best of what I loved about Three Houses with different combat, but also in some ways better than Three Houses. It looks better and it runs better than
Yeah.
Three Houses. It has much better load times than Three Houses. It has so much quality of life in terms of just teleporting around to wherever you need to go next in terms of upgrading their moveset or building a new fucking shack in the woods. I don't even know. But Three Hopes is a fantastic game, and when I had my conversation with Bo, I think that it's up there for the best game in the Warriors franchise, a long-running, very
Sure.
repetitive franchise. But at least for me, and what we talked about in our couple of discussions about this game, is it feels like they did try something new here in terms of having a fully voice-acted and discussed story that is on the same level of writing quality as Three Houses. And it feels like I stepped back into a world with characters that I loved, and they felt exactly the same. It was written by a different team, but I couldn't tell the differences, which is such a salute to what they did of getting everyone back for the voice cast and fully writing them like it was just Three Houses again. It's a really, really remarkable game and an achievement from Team Ninja. Who is it? I don't even know.
Omega Force. You should play Age of Calamity. That's one I'd be really, really interested in hearing your thoughts on. Because
Yeah.
that is... It's what you said about Horizon. Horizon is a much more engaged story than Breath of the Wild. Well, Age of Calamity also has a much more
Yeah.
engaged story than Breath of the Wild. So I think you might find something really compelling there. And if nothing else, I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on that game. So
Sure. Yeah. No, it's not one I'm opposed to playing.
my next game is... Oh, by the way, you played so much of that fucking game on my account that it was in my Wrapped as one of the games I played the most in 2022, by the way.
Go. Yes.
Post Void is my next game. Post Void is a fucking crazy FPS that's like if you took Doom and the depraved work of Francisco
God damn it!
Goya.
Sonic Generation's not on sale on the Xbox.
Shit. But Post Void, you take
Yeah,
Doom You take Francisco Goya, you take Dr. Seuss, you throw them all together, you make it a little bit more grody even in that combination, and you have Post Void. This is a game that
Is
you
he the
can
guy
beat
that
in,
just Goya beans?
not quite. This
Okay,
is a
just
game
checking.
that you can beat in 10 minutes, but it's going to take you hours to be able to beat it in 10 minutes. It is an all-out
Hmm.
LSD sprint of continually draining health refilled by headshots and fast-moving level completions to get to the end of what I think is 16 stages. This is a sort of
Mm.
game where you don't breathe until you finish your run because you
Yeah.
can't. I think that Post Void is remarkable. It is so cacophonously loud and it is so
Mm.
garishly bright that you can't escape it. And I literally sat there for hours until I just beat the game because it's a sort of experience that is so draining that when you're done, you want to be done. And I mean that in the best way possible. They've created a
Yeah,
sort
of
of
course.
pocket of just noise that I think is so successful. And the game is literally $3. Now it's coming to console. I don't think that it's going to play as well on console because it is so predicated
Mm.
on
Twitch
good
reflex, yeah,
aim.
aiming.
Um,
Yeah.
but it's also generous to the fact that you don't need to be a fucking CS:GO level professional player to hit headshots and things.
Hmm.
It is challenging, it is satisfying, it is so wholly unique, and I recommend Post Sword with every fucking fiber of my being if you like shooters. It is weird and fantastic.
Yeah. We should play Neon White. That's
Yeah,
that's the kind of
yeah,
shit I hear about Neon White.
yeah. I keep looking at it. It's also on sale right now on Switch. So
Except for they get like annoying big booby anime characters. So, yikes.
what's your next game?
Uh, we're returning to the Pikmin Rock Block for real this time with the final Pikmin game of the day, which is
Nice.
Pikmin 2. This game we talked about the differences between the Pikmin franchise or the different entries in said franchise. Pikmin 2 is not my favorite. The honor goes to Pikmin 3, but what I found in terms of the GameCube Pikmin game is a game that for me had superior game design.
Yeah,
Really the only flaw that I concede with this game, I will vehemently deny any other criticisms of Pikmin 2, is that there's too much of those fucking caves.
yeah,
But in terms of the overworld's feeling a little bit tighter, in terms of having a little bit more flexibility, in terms of how you approach different puzzles with the white Pikmin and the purple Pikmin, having the ability to multitask with Louis, having the story be a little bit more involved because you've actually got other characters that are brought up
yeah.
in the story, and it just AI is a little bit better. The graphics are a little bit better. It's just everything that Pikmin 1 did so well. I feel like they built upon in Pikmin 2 in terms of game design philosophy, and then they added randomly generated caves, which kind of take away
It's an
from
interesting idea.
obviously the Pikmin experience for
Yeah.
some of you, but some of you people. But for me, it worked,
Yeah.
and I really enjoyed being thorough and meticulous because that's how I play Pikmin anyway. And the lack of the time constraint, especially in those caves, allowed me to just take each room and each puzzle at its own face value without worrying that I'm not going to make it. I felt like I
Sure.
can really engage with Pikmin's mechanics without the overbearing, if I mess this up, it could have ramifications that like cascade down the line and might end up having me not win. I barely fucking squeaked by in Pikmin 1, like
Yeah.
less than half a day or whatever the fuck, before beating that game, which I did. But Pikmin 2 is much more my speed, and I think it's God, Pikmin's such a fascinating franchise. And I think that picking any three of them as your favorite is totally valid because, as we
Yeah.
said, they do pros and cons, they do things differently. But Pikmin 2 is a fantastic game, and I'm glad I played through both of them back to back. That's one of my favorite things about my GameCube Pikmin
Nice.
experience is I finished Pikmin 1, and in that day I started Pikmin 2, which is the best way to play those games because canonically that's how they happen.
I also just want to shout out the ending of Pikmin 2, which I think is so funny. I think Pikmin 2 is a
Yeah,
really funny game. I love all the little
it
messages
is.
the president sends you. Today I'm living under a bridge with this fucking cat dog came and shooed me away, and I got to go live somewhere else. It's so cutting in its satire, but it is also just so whimsical and clever on like a base character level. It's so good.
Yeah. It's a
Let's
whimsical game.
let's talk about Kirby's Dream Buffet, which is my next game. Um,
Are you fucking kidding me? Damn.
yeah, I love Dream Buffet.
Oh,
It's a
sorry,
game.
sorry. Oh, was that too aggressive?
It's a game that Jean and I have. You were making a comment in our review that you wish it was a little bit more, so it became part of your multiplayer stable. I totally get what you're saying, but I have to say that it's in my multiplayer stable because John and I love
Mm,
just playing this game over and over again. I think it does that
yeah.
thing that
I think that's
Splatoon
more of an
does
indictment on like your,
of our
you
brain damage.
as a
Yeah,
person, but yeah,
for us though, I think it does the thing that Splatoon does so well of let's keep the rounds short, let's keep them fun, let's keep them frantic, and let's just
yeah,
throw the player into this really exciting gameplay loop over and over again. And again, I totally concede where you're coming from. That the game could have been bigger, could have been more, but for me, I see this tight,
I didn't say
beautiful
anything.
game with beautiful food-based art direction and a really satisfying appeal of you're a Kirby and you're rolling around. This is an appeal that has been working since the Game Boy with Pinball Land and things like that, and it's done, I think, masterfully here again. We just,
Yeah, absolutely.
for whatever reason, it's just, I think it's because we're really busy. So when we want to play a game for half
Hmm.
an hour at night before we go to bed, this is a great one to just
Yeah,
hop into, play a couple rounds, laugh at each other, big fat Kirby sumo bounce each other off of a stage, and call it a night.
yeah,
And for me, that's all I wanted out of the game, and it's exactly what I got. So
yeah, and I do think that this is another great sign for Hal because
yeah,
they have even with the spin-offs for Kirby, they haven't been doing their best work, frankly, for the
they haven't been
last
hitting since the Wii DS era.
couple generations.
Yeah,
Yeah. And this was a really big surprise,
yeah,
especially in a year with, again, their biggest Kirby game to date. And they're just like, have another one on us. And I'm
yeah,
like, thank you. And it was good. It was a game.
yeah. Throw one at me,
What else have I
white boy.
played? Oh, White Boy. This is a game where I played as a little white boy, but not a white boy, a white square, because I played as Wilmot in a game called Wilmot's Warehouse. Wilmot's
right.
Warehouse is, I gotta approach things with a little bit of pizzazz occasionally,
I like
keep
your
them
pizzazz.
entertained. Wilmot's Warehouse is a game about being a underpaid factory worker, ostensibly with big Jeff Bezos watching over you and saying "fuck you," make sure you get everything done on time. And you play this little square and you organize boxes that come into your warehouse and then you deliver them when they're asked for. But this game dug its way into my fucking mind.
Yeah,
Not only do I like its little aesthetic and the art direction that games by Richard Hogg have, which I also played I Am Dead this year, which is a great game, and I played a little bit of Hokum back in the day. Jesus Christ, you can't fucking imagine how excited I am for this game called Flock.
looks
His
great.
next game. Guys,
Looks great.
go look up the trailer for Flock. I can't fucking wait for that game. But Wilmot, it has just enough edge of like satire with the few like character and writing moments that are in the game, but primarily it's just a gameplay loop game that wormed its way into my mind with my own addiction for organizing things. And I think this is the itch that I wish a little to the left scratched a little bit better. But I got that itch scratched with Wilmot's Warehouse this year that I would just pull my phone out of my pocket and just like, I sat at like a cold table outside for like 3 hours because I just like, I don't want to go anywhere. I just want to focus on Wilmot's Warehouse. And yeah, I think it's a remarkable game that plays great on mobile, but it's also available on PC and on Switch. And it's a bite-sized game that really knows what it's doing, and there's nothing like it. What the fuck else game do you organize a warehouse in? I don't know. Just Wilmot.
My next game, Tucker's a game you don't like, but you're not my dad. And
Well, what's new?
You can't tell me not to put Lunistis on my top games of 2022 list. And here's
I
the
like.
thing,
I like.
I got a very simple pitch for Lunistis, so I don't have a whole lot to say about it. But I'll keep it simple for you. You take Super Mario Galaxy, you take Donkey Kong Country, you take Sonic the Hedgehog, and you throw them into a blender. You hit go in the blender, it goes, and then you take what's in there and you pour it into a Sega Saturn shaped cup, and you drink it in the year 2022. And to me,
Sega Saturn.
yeah,
Just imagine drinking out of a Sega Saturn.
To me, that's what Lunistis is. It is in the tradition of like a Tori or something, a very short platformer. But for me, I found it to be short, but not compromising in scope. I think it plays quite smoothly.
Yeah.
And I think that it's got some really great level motifs. And for $5, that amalgamation of appeals plus what feels like a pretty grand adventure has me quite excited to see what the inevitable Lunasis 2 is going to look like. So shout out to that game.
Mm,
$5
yeah,
on Switch. Another one
yeah.
not enough people played, so go check that one out.
Yeah, but it's also a game that I heard a lot of praise for. Like it was a game that I consistently kept hearing people say, "Man, this game is overlooked. Man, I love this game. Go buy this game." But like everyone was saying that, so it's like, or at least I'm a fucking insulated Twitter bubble motherfucker.
You might
But
be.
at least
Because,
everyone in
yeah.
my insulated Twitter bubble was like, "Go play Lunasis. Go play." No one's playing Lunasis. But hey, guess what? Looks like fucking everyone's playing Lunasis that I can see. So, but it was a game that I played. I also played the final game that I had not played from Genova Chen and that game company, which is Sky. A game that I started when it released back in whatever the fuck year, I don't know, 2022 and 2019 on Switch. And after playing Flower and Journey, which are two of my favorite games of all time, I was like, free to play, MMO, I don't, what are you doing, Genova? You're about these small, artistically driven games. And what I didn't realize was that the evolution from Flower to Journey, or from, Flow to Flower to Journey to Sky, is a really nuanced evolution that culminates in Sky. It is the world design and character design of Journey, and the concept that you are connecting with people asynchronously and talking to them through the bleeps and bloops in Journey. That is such a important reason why that game is as revered as it is, but put into a world where there are hundreds of players and you're supposed to make friends, and the mechanics allow you to make friends by incentivizing you to help other people along and give them the parts of what you collect. Instead of going out into the world and collecting things for yourself, you're collecting things to give to other people. And not only are you, customizing your little character and upgrading little things to make traveling around the world a little bit more fun, and getting new emotes and stuff to communicate with other players, but you're in some of the most visually stunning Journey style worlds I've ever seen, but in all sorts of varied locations. You're going to caves, you're going to clouds in the sky, you're going to rolling plains, and it's so gorgeous, and it's got this amazing score, and it is a ever evolving game. They're still doing content for this. I was watching the Game Awards, and I
They're doing
can't
a
remember the
concert.
artist's name, but what?
They're doing a concert in it, right? Or they were.
Yeah, well, they
Yeah.
did. I can't remember the artist's name. It's an artist that Tanner's girlfriend Anna really likes, but they do concerts in Sky, but they're video game concerts, and I haven't been to the fucking Fortnite concert, so I don't know how different those are. But where sound and gameplay are matched together, and I played one of these little events. It was really magical. This is a super special game that is 100% free to play, and it's just a beautiful, engrossing game with super smooth gameplay and really unique mechanics that incentivize multiplayer in a totally unique way. I really recommend anyone with a Switch or even a phone go down. Or actually, I think it also came to PlayStation. So go try this game. Play it for a couple hours. If you drop off, that's fine. But I think it's a game that people overlook because it's free to play, and I overlooked it because it was free to play, and I don't think that was necessarily fair.
Yeah, it's the same thing for me. That's another one like Tinykin or the other game that I forget now that you mentioned, that just by simple merit of time didn't make it into my year. But it's on the short list. Actually, what's funny is my uncle, who doesn't play games, was talking to me about how he plays Sky on his phone because he finds it very relaxing. So it's interesting.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's really interesting. Huh.
The reach that game has.
Yeah.
New Genova Chen game one. That's my question for you.
Jesus Christ, please. When he came on stage to announce the fucking concert, I almost shat my fucking pants. I'm like, I just got the new Ken Levine game and Hades 2, and I thought I was about to get a new Genova Chen game. I was about to die fucking happy, but unfortunately I have to die sad now.
Yeah, because you're planning on dying imminently.
Yeah, soon.
I see. All right, so I believe Tucker, this game number 11. So my next game's 11, so we're about to crack into our top 10 here. But the game that's just outside of it is Halo 3 ODST, the game that completed the Halo series.
Here's a rainy day game. Yeah,
I do this thing. It's currently annoying you with Whiplash, because I'm doing the same thing with Whiplash, where I love something, a franchise, a creator, and they have something that people love that I haven't experienced, and I just save it. I just save it, and I save it for what I want when I need that thing I know I'm going to adore. And what's interesting about Halo 3 ODST is I didn't adore it, but I still loved it a lot. and I think what's interesting about Halo 3 ODST is that it recontextualizes the series in subtle ways
Yeah.
that add up to be something quite interesting. And to me, not as compelling as playing as Master Chief or as Noble Six or Spartan Locke or whatever, but actually it's more compelling than Spartan Locke, but not as good as Halo Reach.
Hmm.
You're playing as an ODST, so you're playing as just a dude in like fucking just like regular Marine padding and stuff. And the result of that is a grunt is not something you just walk up to and you bash on the top of the head with the buddy of your battle rifle as though you're Master Chief. Every threat is recontextualized by the fact you're not a Spartan, you're just some guy.
Yeah.
And you combine that with what is ostensibly a detective noir in this moody, rain-lit city with maybe the series' best soundtrack over top. And the sum of its parts is a remarkably intimate Halo game. And I found that appeal, despite me preferring the power fantasy of Chief, to be really,
Yeah.
really remarkable and lasting. Not only because I love Halo, but just because it gives you such a different lens into the world that even just playing as a different Spartan doesn't allow. So I actually think you should try 3 ODST. It stands on its own. I think you gotta play 3 first. You gotta just bite the bullet.
Yeah.
But I think that the small what might appear to be small differences in 3 ODST coalesce in an experience that is remarkably different, sort of emotionally, than the other games in the franchise. So
the way you talk about the recontextualization, good. I'm glad you did. You talked about it being like breaking case of glass fucking thing, and it worked apparently. Yeah. But I when you talk about the recontextualization, that does interest me a lot on a conceptual level. I'm not the biggest Halo fan. I would like to play the other games, but the idea of which part of that surprised you?
That you're not the biggest Halo fan.
Oh my, yeah, I've been harboring a deep dark secret. But the idea of having this world and playing as an entirely different part of it, like I'm sure people didn't even expect this to be a thing. Like they just did it. They just came up with something and they did it, and I find that to be a really compelling angle into a world that I find interesting. I like the world of Halo 1 and 2 and Infinite that I've played. And in those games, the human element is pretty overlooked. I mean, maybe you'll have one or two human characters, but through the grunts being like an actual threat to a person, like that sounds exciting to me. So I would like that game to be in my game hit list.
So now you're doing 11, or are you on to 10 now?
No, I'm on 11.
You're on 11, okay.
Yeah, because you started first.
Yeah.
My number 11 is Splatoon 3. This game is just lovely. It's fantastic. The more I think about I haven't played it very much, especially since that first month or so when it came out. But the more I think about it, the more I think that it's probably the best Splatoon game. I mean, we played that campaign. I was blown away by how much they stepped up the complexity, the progression, and the scope and spectacle of Splatoon 3's campaign. I think is one of the best things that team has ever done. And also just, it's not news, but guess what? It's full of fucking quality of life everywhere. Everywhere you look, they've just like, oh, this was a problem. Okay, well, let's just make it not a problem anymore. And I really respect the team for just polishing Splatoon as they have been over the years. But this feels like a real step forward in a lot of small ways, but a lot of small ways that add up to a remarkably different experience, even though you are returning to the same maps and using similar weapons and still buying shit from Sheldon. And I really love how they listened to criticism. I mean, this is one of the games that one of the best games I can think of where it was like, oh yeah, they had issues with this. Let's just think about that and implement something that stands over that issue, and boom, Splatoon 3 comes out and it's as remarkable as it is. Fantastic fucking game. Goddamn.
I hate Splatoon 3. Let's get into our top 10.
All right,
these are the big ones now. You ready, Tucker? My first big one is actually a small one, and that is Before Your Eyes.
Oh, that's right.
Before Your Eyes. As I began it, I enjoyed it, and then there was this fucking pit in my stomach as I realized, something's afoot.
Was it from the whole avocado that you ate earlier that day?
Yeah. um, there's just this feeling I had that something was not right. And I won't spoil it here because the game is very accessible. It's on Netflix Games. I recommend people play it that way. Um, when when it was revealed what the narrative was actually about, I actually couldn't control myself and just started bawling. It was the sort of game that made
Mhm.
me have to hug Jean for a while after I beat it. And I think
Yeah.
that obviously the game gets a lot of praise for it finding a new way for the player to interact with the video game through your blinking.
Yeah.
For me, it really is the emotional core which takes that idea from beyond the realm of like interesting tech illustration to
Hmm.
deeply emotionally resonant idea. And this is the sort of
Yeah. Yeah.
experience that to me proves why video games as an emotional art form are not being used to their full potential by a lot of
Yeah.
studios. Because it's an illustration of how you are giving me a human experience that is nonetheless mediated by otherworldly characters that still feels more real and more intimate and more tangible than any,
Hmm.
not any, because I saw some really amazing film this year, but most beautiful illustrations of acting or something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The sort of relationship between your eye and the screen and your heart in the characters is unmatched,
Hmm.
and it destroyed me, literally,
Yeah.
sobbing. Amazing, amazing, amazing game.
Really remarkable, and the one of the sleeper elements of this year that I feel like people don't give enough praise is, guess what? Netflix mobile games. They got this. It is on your phone. If you have Netflix, you can download Before Your Eyes for free with Netflix. And
Yeah,
I'm sure it's just as good on mobile as I played it on PC. If
yeah,
your thing has a camera and can see your eyeballs, you will be able to play this game. And the way that it recontextualizes, like you being like aware as a player that you are a person interacting with this, like it creates a different kind of like
yeah,
connection between the human body and a game that hasn't really been tried before. And yeah, it's a game that I played last year and I told you to play and you eventually got around to it. And I'm glad it hit you as
yeah,
much as it did, because it is those artistic experiences, whether for me it's a game or a film, that when I finish it, I feel like I need to communicate with the people that I love, because I've just
yeah,
experienced something that like reinvigorates my interest as a human being in like life. And before my eyes, before your eyes, not mine, was one of those experiences for me when I played it back
yeah.
in the day. Go fucking play that game. You have Netflix. I know you do, you sick bastard. You're watching Wednesday. Everyone is, apparently. I'm not, but we digress.
We do. Your turn.
All right. Moving on from that to another game that will emotionally destroy me when I finish it, which is Xenoblade Chronicles 3. A
Sure.
very anticipated game for me, as I played Xenoblade Chronicles 2, one of my favorite games of all time, back in 2018, a little bit after it came out. And Monolith Soft continues to prove themselves as one of the greatest developers working today, because they continue to put out some of the highest quality games on a scope and scaled spectacle that most creators aren't, faster than anyone else. I mean, in the time that it took Sony Santa Monica to do God of War 2018 and God of War Ragnarok, they did like 3 big games and worked on like 7 other ones. And it's like,
Yeah.
what the fuck? And this game has even more characters and writing and voice acting and open world ridiculousness than any of the previous games they've worked on. And it's a special game in terms of what it does with the Switch's hardware. It's a gorgeous game. It's got a phenomenal art direction, but it's the more grounded and human elements of this game that I think for most people, not quite yet for me because I haven't finished it, but take it above what Xenoblade 1 and 2 did, is
Yeah.
the war conflict and the investment in this world and the emotional connection to these characters is so raw, because the game is about death and the impermanence of life and the way that you build bonds over a short period of time with people you care about and can overcome interpersonal obstacles to contribute to a greater goal. And what does this mean for what do large scale impacts have on society? It's really thematically rich, much more so than, at least from what I gathered of playing the other games. And it ties it all together with like with a connection to musical motif that not many games go for. We see this very often in films where there will be some sort of musical score element that plays into the emotions of the characters are having, and it's unique to that film or whatever. But the way that they use flutes in this game
Yeah.
that both Noah and Mayo are off-seers, and they play this tune to send off the souls of the people that have died on the battlefield. The flute. Well, I think I'm pretty sure they made a new
They
fucking
made
like they
their own
created
flutes. Yeah.
a unique kind of flute for this game. And not only does it play in the cutscenes, but it's interwoven throughout each of the characters' themes in the score and in the rest of the score is really a special kind of artistry that and a harmony between storytelling, gameplay, and the musical development that we don't see all the time from games. We see it occasionally, but this is one of those prime examples of it. It's a game that really blew me away, and I was obsessed with it while I was playing it. But unfortunately, as I said, life finds a way to stop me from playing Xenoblade 3. I want to get back to it though.
My next game really couldn't be further from yours. That's Max Payne. Max Payne is sleazy and debaucherous and campy and melodramatic. And it's just fucking fun to dive around every corner in bullet time and just riddle some fucking weird guy with bullets, right? It's just this game where he plays a guy with a chip on his shoulder and a New York full of sleaze to clean up. And
that's how I would act if I had a chip on my shoulder.
And the moment-to-moment experience of that,
thank you,
is just so particularly unique in how the narrative is delivered through these comic book panels. And so you're kind of endeared to this weird, very Sam Lake, very Remedy world. But then, on a mechanical level, you're also just sort of enraptured in what I think is the best kind of shooter, which is a sort of shooter that asks you to always constantly move. This is a game all about your movement, about your dives and your ducks, and you are rarely ever holding still and shooting.
Duck, dodge, and dodge.
What's
the dodgeball thing? Something like that.
And the sort of sum of that part's just an unmistakable experience. You're never going to look at Max Payne and think, man, this looks like another shooter. Unless you're like, maybe it looks like Max Payne 2. It's the only thing you're going to compare it to. And I find that so unique in sort of the ways that mechanical ideas, namely bullet time for Max Payne, have reverberated throughout the genre in the years since, is sort of a testament to how fucking good of an idea Max Payne was. And it is a great idea. And it looks and runs beautifully on Series X. So if you got an Xbox, throw your disc in there or buy it off the store. It's usually on sale for like $5 or $10. I think Max Payne is one of the shooters of all time.
Or you can wait for the Max Payne 1 and 2 remakes that are coming imminently for Series X.
Imminently. We'll see.
Well, who the fuck knows? But though they were announced. I'd like to play Max Payne. I like Remedy, obviously. Goddamn, Control 2 is happening. It's a thing.
Yeah.
Goddamn. Okay, just with that out of the way, let's hop over to a tough one. A tough one to discuss, tough one to play, because this game doesn't run very well. And of course, Pokemon Violet is, despite that, one of the greatest games I've ever played. It's one of the most best multiplayer experiences I've ever played. I think it's the culmination of what Pokemon has been floundering with for the last 10 years in some of the best ways and some of the worst ways, but is a game that we've talked about ad nauseum, that people have talked about ad nauseum, but it's a game that I think will stand as a chapter in Pokemon that we can never look back from. And of course, you can say that for most Pokemon games, but I think this one more than the rest. As you so aptly pointed out when the games were first revealed, they're just a tick away from Red and Blue. This could be the next refresh for Pokemon series that the franchise has always been looking towards, and we've seen those steps, but they took that leap, and they fell on their knee. They probably shattered their fucking fibula or whatever, but god damn it, they took the leap, and it's creative leaps and attempts towards something greater that I respect more than anything. And Game Freak finally took that leap, much like I have a lot of respect for Sonic Team and HAL, two teams that I wasn't so confident of their ability before this year. I was confident in Game Freak's ability because I like so many Pokemon games, but I didn't know they had this in them. And another game that we'll get to later. The remarkable game. Pokemon is back in full force, and it is selling better than almost ever has. So we'll see how this impacts them going into the future.
Selling remarkably well. We'll see. We'll see what this means. I want to not talk about Pokemon. I want to talk about Splatoon 3.
No, you don't.
I do. I do
Oh,
want to talk about Splatoon 3, which is my next game. And you, I think, surmised, that's not the right word, summarized is what I meant to say, a lot of my thoughts on the game. So
what is
I will.
surmised? Actually, that's like putting things together.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Suppose that something is true without having evidence to confirm it.
Right.
I do that often.
Yeah. Um, I think what I love most about Splatoon 3 is that it's Splatoon. And this sounds so basic, but it's true. I just find the world of Splatoon so endearing and creative, and I just like
Yeah,
being in it. And so, as I was saying when we talked about the game with Bo, this is just the next evolution of the world of Splatoon. It
yeah.
completely supersedes what came before. This is just Splatoon now.
Hmm.
And how could I not love that? And you're right. It's all about refinement, refining those edges,
Hmm.
making everything kind of smooth and curvy in the world of Splatoon. You know what I mean? Like that big old fish lady who you can go on recon missions with. Um, but no, my love of Splatoon 3 is my love of Splatoon on a whole, and I don't think there's
Yeah.
anything wrong with that. With the team identifying, we know why this franchise is great. We know that it does need to change, and we're
Hmm.
just going to retain and refine as necessary. And that's exactly what they did. And you're
Yeah.
right, that story mode, even though I still want something larger, it is the largest
Yeah.
we've
Yeah. Yeah.
gotten,
So do I.
and it is,
Hmm.
especially in that last hour, just so remarkably clever and funny. So,
Yeah.
Splatoon 3 hit exactly how I wanted it to, and those amiibo are goddamn beautiful. Not that it gives the game any
Yeah.
more points, but
Yeah.
great amiibo. So
And also, you get a little buddy, and that's always a
you do,
plus. And his name is literally Little Buddy.
yeah,
So, for what that's worth. Okay, so you don't want to talk about Pokemon, but I say let's talk about Pokemon because Pokemon Legends Arceus is the next game on my
yeah,
list, and it's the even bigger creative
yeah.
liberty decision jump than Scarlet and Violet is, but it's not. It's not a mainline game. You gotta
They
put like
count it
you
as a
gotta put like
mainline
7
game.
asterisks, but you like take the asterisks away, but then you're like, oh, but but goddamn, Legends Arceus is the better game from Scarlet and Violet because it doesn't
I
have
agree.
those technical uh, forthcomings. But it is also a game that tries something entirely different for Pokemon. Part of my enjoyment of Scarlet and Violet was that I was returning to a gameplay loop and philosophy that I had enjoyed for so long, but they broke free of those in my opinion shackles that the Pokemon franchise had been shackled with for the entirety of its existence, which is turn-based slow battling and walking through the grass and everything just being a roadblock or a little wall that you have to step over in order to get to where you actually want to go. But Legends Arceus broke those walls down and did something so fresh for the Pokemon franchise that this is really the one that I can see where Scarlet and Violet take the franchise in the future.
Yeah,
I can't quite see yet where Legends Arceus allows them to go with being experimental, with trying new gameplay philosophies, with introducing new mechanics into the core combat and catching of Pokemon, which they had basically never done before up to that point. And in terms of setting itself apart, there's no game that really has done it better in the Pokemon franchise. This is the most unique game that Game Freak has ever made, and I think they absolutely hit out of the park. It's got wonderful music. It's got some of the best characters in the franchise, which also Scarlet and Violet does. So good on Game Freak for really stepping back into that this year. And it's just a remarkably unique game that signals such exciting and fresh things for the Pokemon franchise.
I will say that I like Legends Arceus more than Scarlet and Violet. That's what I'll say on that front.
Sure, good.
But just as you have been talking about a couple games I don't like, I'm going to talk about a game you don't like because my next title is
What's new?
Roller
You know?
Drome.
Oh Christ,
Now,
goddamn it! I
now
was
I
thinking
got
about that game the other night. Fuck.
now I got a Roller Drome early to do some Lost and Cult stuff on that you're going to see in the coming months, which I'm very excited to share because I've had the opportunity this year to really get deep into Roller Drome and its creative process. And what I've found in Roller Drum is a game that is so perfectly suited to what I look for in games that it's been a real privilege to get to sort of talk to Roll 7 and cover the game to the extent that I will be able to when Lock on Volume 5 comes out. Because what is Roller Drum other than a gameplay driven experience where you're shooting
Sure.
guys on roller skates and it's combining things that I've come to love this year, like Max Payne, with just my general love of kinetic shooters and
Yeah.
beautiful art styles.
It's Max Payne meets Ollie Ollie World.
Yeah, literally. Um,
There we
and
go. Boom.
and that is
Synthesis.
lovely. And I just want to get into that gameplay and play it because it feels so good to me to chain things together and figure out how to harness my momentum and redirect it and all these things. But I've made an
Yeah.
error, Tucker, and this is where Roller Drum gets really fucking special and what I talk about in Lock On and Part. Roller Drum's a game about the idea that people are easily distracted. The narrative of Roller Drum is about a dystopian world wherein its people are so preoccupied with blood sport that they ignore the dystopia around them.
Mm.
And what is
Yeah.
Roller Drum on a meta level, if not a commentary on this idea, insofar as that on my first playthrough Roller Drum, all I did was mash through the cutscenes, or they're basically
Yeah.
like environmental storytelling little set pieces you traverse through between the
Yeah.
levels.
You like read little newspaper clippings and
Yeah.
shit like that.
What did I do other than run past those so I could shoot more guys? And then the
True.
sort of revelation about myself as a player that I experienced on my second playthrough when I stopped and read all the newspapers and listened to the conversation.
Yeah.
You can put your ear to a wall and you start to hear people talking on the side. When I started to listen and realize what I had done as a player is no different than what the people within the world of Roller Drum do with the sport of Roller Drum and their
Yeah.
own political issues, was to me one of the smartest
You
uses
lived
of
long enough to
environment.
watch yourself become the thing you hate.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
One of the smartest uses of environmental storytelling and narrative design I've experienced in the game in a long time. And I just fucking love Roller Drum. Played it 3 times this year. And I plan to do far more playthroughs in 2023.
You do that. You know, enjoy that. I'll give you a rub on your back next time I see you to congratulate you.
Number 6.
Let's talk about a game.
You're on number 7, right? You're on number 7. I got too excited.
Yes.
Yes.
True. My next game, my number 7, is a game that took the world by storm in a way that I wasn't really expecting. Because it's a game I was like, it looks okay. I don't know if I'll really get into this, but then I downloaded Marvel Snap and I played it for more than like 2 hours. And Christ Almighty, I think this is one of the best designed multiplayer games I've ever experienced. I mean,
yeah.
I don't remember the name of the development team, but they obviously learned from Hearthstone, one of the card games of all time. But they learned so much from Hearthstone that this game feels technically flawless in terms of the balancing of the cards and the pacing and the way that you unlock things. It's all so refined. And it doesn't have any free-to-play horseshit. You can pay for a battle pass and get like 2 new cards a month if you're really, really into it.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's a game just about hopping into 3-minute matches, using what you know your deck can do, again, and reading your opponent and reading the environment that you're placed into in such quick fucking bursts that this is one of the ultimate one more games for me. Because it's the kind of game that I'd be like you and Kirby Dream Buffet, like, oh, 1 or 2 matches before I go to bed. And then suddenly it would be fucking like 3:30 in the morning. I'm like, oh Christ, oh no, this is gonna mess up my day next day. But then I'd wake up the next morning and instead of like going out and brushing my teeth, and like having breakfast, getting my day, I would just take out my phone, play more Marvel Snap. And I am lucky enough that I've got a group of friends in Lincoln that also all got into this game. Tanner played a lot of it, and my friends Seth and Sam send texts about it every day and how excited they are about these new variants, and this new card is really going to change the meta in terms of the 4-cost cards are not so great now, but with this new card and new balancing or this new season pass, this is really going to change things. It really is a remarkably special game that seems to have continuing community support. I've dropped off of it for the last couple of months, but it's also going to get 1v1 multiplayer and like new game modes like pretty soon, and that is going to just blow the game up. The fact that you can just like eventually you'll be able to take out your phone and just challenge someone to a 1-on-1 Marvel Snap game, like your friends. I don't even know where my time is going to go when that happens, but it's amazing game, and it's so like they didn't need to put the effort into it that they did, but like every card has like unique particle effects and like effects on other cards. It's a beautiful card game, which I didn't necessarily know was possible. Fucking hell, god damn shit.
I was certain that this game was going to be a flash in the pan, and couldn't have been more wrong, and I'm very happy for it.
Yeah.
I'm very happy for that team's success. My next game, Tucker, is Point P. Now, I fucking love Point P, and the fact that it's only number 6 is just a testament to the fact that I played 5 games that are somehow better than it this year. Because to me,
which is surprising.
Point P is a masterpiece.
It's a masterpiece.
It's a sort of game wherein after it hooked me, I literally just sat on the couch with the shade. I remember this clearly. Jean was going to the beach with her friends. I was invited to the beach. I said no. I sat in my underwear with the shades drawn, the lights off for hours until I beat Point P. And that was so satisfying. And then afterwards, Tucker, I just beat Point P a couple times a week. I open up that game. I can get to the end of the game in one combo, and I beat it just because it's fucking good. My only complaint with Point P is it doesn't have an endless mode. That's the only thing I dislike about the game.
Oh, interesting.
Because if it had an endless mode, I would be playing that shit every fucking day. Because there are a few games that so perfectly nail their arcade gameplay loop better than Point P. But as soon as you get the power up, as you like the augments and the little abilities you like, and you learn how to trust yourself to angle jumps that are just quite right to just land on an enemy's head, to just bounce off of them and bop-a-da-ba-da. As you're bebopping and scatting around these stages like a madman, it just feels so good. I did not expect Point P to grab me the way that it did. And even though I've literally done everything, I've beat the game, I've finished all the puzzles, I just keep playing it because it just, that simple tactile act of the jumps and the taps and the bounces it's perfect. It's actually perfect.
God. Yeah, and it's my number 5, but I'm just going to talk about it here because we have another similar game in our top 5 here that we'll talk about in a second. But Point B, I echo everything you said. I think that what really blew me away about Point B is that even though it is very predicated on like you knowing your skill and what your character is able to do with a certain amount of jumps and where you should aim, because like there's not a path to go for in the level. You get to decide, would it be better for me to jump off this guy and collect this or that? Would smashing this pot, even if I don't know necessarily what's in it, will that let me go farther? Or if I collect this fruit, is that gonna like what am I gonna look for in order to like complete the combos in order to continue myself upwards? And the haptics, the art style, the music, it is such a finely tuned game that it much like Marvel Snap enraptured me that I did not want to put it down, and I would continuously pull out my pocket and just like it did the Tetris effect thing to me, where I was like, in real life I'm like, oh, in my mind I'm like bouncing things off walls and collecting fucking fruits and ground pounding and all this shit, which happens to me maybe more than I'd like to admit, like imagining that I'm acting out video games in real life. Notoriously that has happened with both Fire Emblem Three Houses and Persona 5, which I like perceive my friendships as like I'm putting in fucking points to like upgrade and like, oh, I gotta go do my homework now. That's gonna take a part of my energy for the day. But Point B, Point B, it doesn't make sense to do that for Point B. Like, it's an arcade jumping off the walls game, but like it's so tactile and surprisingly immersive that I wanted to keep thinking about it when I wasn't playing it. That game's a fucking masterpiece. I just bumped it up from a 9 to a 10 on my fucking backlog. God damn, I love fucking Point B. Jesus Christ.
Give me your number 6 and also. I think that's the best way to do it.
My number 6 is somewhere on your list, because I'll slit your throat if it's not, and I know it's on your list. It's Immortality.
Okay,
this is much like Point B and Before Your Eyes, 3 of the best games I've ever played.
Yeah.
Also available on the Netflix phone games app. Go fucking play Immortality.
True.
Which is insane. Which is fucking crazy. Also, so is 12 Minutes and Kentucky Route Zero, which are also both good games. So Netflix games, you're really grabbing things. But Immortality is this year's version of what can games be. I think Before Your Eyes was that for last year, but what Sam Barlow has been doing has been building to Immortality. I'd really like to go back and play Telling Lies, and Her Story. Actually just bought Her Story on here. It's actually not a very long game. I thought it would be longer, but I'm going to get to that probably pretty soon. Immortality is the reason I love games, and it's the reason I love movies. And at the same time, which I never thought was fucking possible. Yeah. And three of the most like engrossing and well acted movies I've ever seen, but I have to investigate them using my wits and intellect and knowledge of film, which is a really interesting thing this game does, is knowing how films are edited and structured and how actors are placed throughout scenes and items are repeated is knowledge that I've gained through watching over 2,000 movies in my life that I never thought I'd be able to use to explore a video game. And yet Sam Barlow created that. And I'm so happy that it's in the conversation for Game of the Year, and so many places are giving Matt and Gage and Sam Barlow so much credit because they created something that is artistically unlike anything else that either industry has ever done. And people are always talking about how games are trying to lean into the cinematic side, and that's taking away from what makes games so special. But I always push back against that because I think the fact that the two industries can learn from each other, and you know, primarily games learning from movies, is something that I wholeheartedly put my support behind. And when Neil Druckmann says his next game is structured like a TV show, and people are like, "Fuck you, you don't like video games anymore," I'm like, no, hold up, let him cook. This man gave us Last of Us 2. And I'm so excited to be a Sam Barlow fan now because you know for a goddamn fact that you and I will freak out the moment that his next game is announced. We will be playing it minute zero because he created something that grabbed me and grabbed you so fucking deeply. This is goddamn Immortality.
Yeah, so I'll just jump into Immortality because it's my number 3. I echo basically everything you said, so I'll attack it from more of a personal lens.
Perfect.
For me, I don't usually play games in long sittings just because that's just not the way I operate. But I played, 10 hours Immortality in 2 days or whatever, just to beat the game because it is so enrapturing and it's so smart in how it uses the idea of a match cut to transition between things. Because the match, think about what is the match cut in cinema? It's famous. It's about the famous match cuts. Yeah. It's the blowing out the candle in Lawrence of Arabia. It's the bone to the space station in 2001, right? But here, match cuts is just
very good movies, but
I agree with you.
I didn't take the opportunity.
I agree with you in 2001. I love Lawrence of Arabia. I agree with you in 2001. What was I saying? Yeah, the match cut. The idea of making the match cut just this common mechanical language to move between these films is so smart. And the film, the film, whatever you want to call it, is so narratively sophisticated that I think it pushes beyond what a lot of what I saw from games or film this year. And even just this is a simple thing, but the base level idea that they released a game with this much nudity was inherently remarkable.
Yeah.
I mean, how often do you see the sort of gratuitous nudity in games that you see in Immortality? Not often. And I think it's just a testament to the fact that Sam Barlow made a game, and this sounds really dumb and pejorative, but it's true. It made a game for adults. And this is a game for people who want to sit back and think about literature and film and games and how they work. And that's, I think, an inherently adult or maybe scholarly thing. And I think this game feels very scholarly.
I think that's a better word to use.
It's a better word.
Because I also don't think that this game necessarily appeals to adults, maybe more so than your average modern game, which is about action, which is about tactile gameplay with the controller. But the fact that this is ostensibly like a D-pad and one button game, you could play this on a fucking Atari joystick if you so damn desired. If someone found a fucking way, life finds a way. But I think that scholarly is a great way to put it because thinking about these themes about artistry and about what it means to like lose yourself into artistry, and like that is not only told through each of the separate films in different ways, but then the overarching story of Marissa Marcel's life and the fact that she has gone missing and discovering this mystery behind it that is pieced together through 3 separate films that are like story-wise kind of unrelated, but then they kind of have the same themes and like mildly like recurring characters, and it's so smart in how it builds its 3 separate films, then as together, then as a game, then as the interaction between the game and the movies, which like has like secret layers that you don't even like think are possible at first. It's so nuanced and smart and layered that I mean, I did basically say I'm sorry, Sam Barlow, I think it took me 3 days to beat Immortality. But you know, your next game I'll beat in 1. All right, that's the Scout's honor.
The last thing I want to say is I just want to also shout out Charlotta Mullins' performance as the One. I
Yeah,
don't want to
yeah, yeah,
offer
yeah.
more context as to who the One is in case somebody here who hasn't played the game. But Man
Hmm.
Engage has obviously and deservedly gotten a lot of the praise, but I think Charlotta Mullins' performance is also
Jesus
remarkable.
Christ, I think that
So,
might be the best video game performance of all
yeah.
time, for me at least. Jesus
Okay.
Christ, Marissa. Okay, all right, let's keep going. Keep going. I
I'm,
can't
no, I'm
keep
sorry.
talking about it.
I'm just thinking. So I need to do my number 5 now also because your number 5 is Immortality. Yeah. So I need to
Sure.
do another
Yeah.
game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So my next game is
Hello,
a game
Paul.
that I was so wrong about initially when it was released
This is
or
my
revealed.
cat Apollo, but we've been
Hi,
calling him
Apollo.
Paul recently.
My cat's name is Paul.
Which your cat's name is Paul,
Yeah.
but this is also Paul now.
Hi, Paul. Um,
Bye bye, Paul.
I was wrong about this game when it was
Continue.
announced, and I had to play it to understand why. And that game is The Last of Us Part
Legends
1.
Arceus? Oh.
No, it's The Last of Us Part 1. First thing I want to say, and I just haven't been saying anything on Twitter because I don't want to get into it. Fuck everybody who's shitting on Naughty Dog right now. For why?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Neil Druckmann is one of the most smart and creative and boundary pushing people that's ever picked up a pen to write a video game. And we're gonna
Yeah.
sit on Twitter and bitch about the fact that he's making a game that's gonna feel like a TV show. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding
Yeah.
me? You're gonna play The Last of Us and Last of Us Part 2 and then say that guy doesn't have creative license, whatever the fuck he wants. Are you kidding me? So shut the fuck up.
Insane.
I don't want to hear any more Naughty
Yeah.
Dog slander on Twitter. It's annoying. But jokes aside, Last of Us Part 1 is an amazing technical achievement. I was, when it was announced, we were both lukewarm on the idea of remaking The Last of Us. And
Yeah.
I think that I needed to play it to understand why they did it. And I've also had the wonderful opportunity to speak to Matthew Gallant and Sean Eskeg, who are the two creative leads on Last of Us Part 1. And playing the game and talking with them, I've come to really appreciate the idea that this is a restoration. It is the idea that The Last of Us does not need to be remade, it needs to be restored. Because the way it felt and the way it moved and what it did was so perfect that it just needs to be up to modern standards. It's no different than all of the 4K restorations of film we get. And games are just moving so fast that something like The Last of Us from 2013 does, side by side, look old, feel old compared to what we have now. And I think we're reaching a point with PS5 where there's going to be improvements, but they're going to get more and more marginal. And so having The Last of Us with this level of technical fidelity, I think is important for posterity. But I also think it's important to heighten what makes The Last of Us so special, which is the emotions. The Last of Us is a story about love and people. And Video Game Donkey said it better than anybody else when he talked about Part 1. Video game dialogue is so often, you talk, I talk, you talk, I talk. That's not how people speak in real life. And Last of Us understands that it's a human game with humans performing characters that don't feel like they're just a video game character. They feel like people in a narrative with motivations and goals and situations in the world. And you need this level of technical fidelity to really feel that. And so I played Last of Us, and I was reminded this game is a masterpiece, and anybody says otherwise looks goofy, as Colin Moore already said aptly. If you think Last of Us is not one of the best stories ever told in video games, you're goofy.
That is another thing that has been controversial on Twitter recently. Is like, oh, Last of Us, were these pixels gonna make you cry? It's like, yes, bitch, yes.
I do think the people behind the HBO show are putting their foot in it a little bit with some of the things they're saying, but ultimately they're hyping up the TV show, guys. They're doing a press tour.
What the fuck do you want them to say? This is a pretty good video game story that we're adapting. No. Are you fucking stupid? They want people to watch this goddamn show.
People just have an anti-Naughty Dog bias right now, and they're looking for quotes out of context, and they're looking for any reason to shit on them. Because here's the truth: when you make something as good as The Last of Us, people want to tear it down, but you can't because it is sterling. The Last of Us is fucking amazing.
Yeah. So I'm gonna get to part 1. I'm weirdly reticent to play that game because since I played part 2, my thoughts about the original story and its gameplay and all of that have dropped, and I'm like, wow, Last of Us 2 really blew it out of the water. I'm not saying that you think that part 1 is better than part 2. I don't think you think that. You better not, at least.
I don't.
But is that I'm interested to see how it holds up going back to it. I don't know, but I think that playing it up to the standards of modern controls and visuals and all that will certainly I think there's a good chance that I replay Last of Us, and suddenly both Last of Us 1 and 2 are in my top 10 games of all time. I think that's
Yeah.
absolutely a possibility. But we will see when I get to that game sometime.
The last thing I want to say, because I think that there's an interesting personal, emotional lens to view part one through when you've already played part two and you know how these characters end up. So we'll see.
Oh, true. Great point. Great point.
So,
Yes.
okay, so now I think you go.
Yeah, I need to go my 4.
Yeah, you go. You go. You go number 4.
I'm actually going to go number 1 real quick. You want to vamp for a second while I use the restroom real quick?
I don't know if Tucker's going to keep this part in, but we'll vamp a little bit. Sort of the question that's on my mind right now, and obviously you let me know in the comments there, let me know in the Discord, which is actually what I prefer, to be honest with you. What game do I start 2023 with? Because last year, 2022, my first game was Call of Duty Vanguard. Not a good way to start. 2 years ago, 2021, my first game was Resident Evil 4. Fucking awesome way to start, of course. So I'm like, I gotta pick a game that's gonna be more on the RE4 side than the Vanguard side to begin the year with. And I just don't know exactly what it's gonna be. There's some weird shit that I want to play that I might start with. And we'll just see how the chips land. Or maybe I'll do something big that I know I like. I don't fucking know. We'll see. I'm not gonna tell you what I said.
If only there was some way for me to find out. All right. Let's move on to my number 4 game of this year. It's a game that I haven't talked too much about since I played it, and I discussed it very highly on BLB. Because it's a game that not many people talk about, and frankly, I think that the narrative around this game has dipped as time has gone on. And that is Detroit Become Human. This is a game that was my first real foray into Quantic Dream games. And everything that I've heard about this game is that it's pretentious and that it's too far up its own ass, and its themes aren't quite handled well. And frankly, my dear, I could say I don't give a damn, but that's not even true. I do give a damn. I think they're wrong. Because when I played Detroit Become Human, I experienced one of the most finely crafted combinations of character storytelling and world building that I've ever experienced in a video game. And I think that people don't give enough credit to the breadth of characters and concept that this game tackles. I mean, it's one of the most thematically resonant and nuanced games that I've ever played, because it's a game that's told from so many perspectives, and your choices and your thoughts on the morality of the choices that are being made in the game actually do impact the way that the story progresses. And you can fight with the characters of doing things that maybe you don't think that they would do, but maybe you think would be better, and you just have to deal with the consequences of that. And I was so blown away by it, but that notoriously, I played through this not short game in one sitting, which is pretty obscene. But I do think that there's something so special here that it cracked into one of my favorite games of all time, because I am a story first guy. I put that in light air quotes. Gameplay is obviously very important to a lot of these games. I would not like point before story. But this game is story first, and the interactivity between you, as I said, using your moral choices to impact the game's world and learn about the thematic decisions that the game is making, feels so emotionally impactful, and again proves to me why the mediums of cinematic storytelling and interactivity through games should continue to be delved into. I think that Detroit Become Human and Immortality are examples of interactivity enhancing a narrative and enhancing the themes and enhancing the way that you as a person can connect to an art, a creator's vision. And Detroit Become Human is an absolutely remarkable game. And I know this is going to sound crazy, and you will probably disagree with this, but I wish Quantic Dream wasn't making a Star Wars game next. I wish that they would do what they have done, which is entirely original world, entirely original ideas. Because when I played Detroit Become Human, I was like, there's so much they can do there with their own ideas. So I'm reticently excited for the Star Wars game, even if it comes out in fucking 20 years or whatever. But Detroit Become Human was such a revelation to me that I do want to go back and play their other games, even if they're not quite as good. They're obviously not as modern, but I recommend Detroit Become Human. But I also know that I'm in the minority. People don't seem to like this game, which is, just something I'll have to wrestle with for the rest of my days.
I mean, it's hard to know if you're in the minority or if it's just sort of a Twitter sentiment, to be honest with you, because it scored pretty well, right? I mean, I would like to play it also. I was actually talking to Ben Hayhoe recently about this game because he's a big Quantic fan, and I would like to play Detroit Become Human. I also don't think Stardust Eclipse is ever going to come out. That's kind of my opinion.
Yeah.
And by the way, I also think that less studios should be making Star Wars games and Marvel games and licensed games in general. That's my general philosophy, so I actually agree with you there. But my next game, if that's story first, this is story last, because my what is this? Is this number 4? I think so. My number 4 is Bayonetta 3.
Shouldn't it be 3? How did we fuck this up? Whatever.
Because remember, I talked about Immortality, which is my number 3. So I'm doing my number 4. You're doing number 3. I won't have one. Yeah.
My goddamn bad.
I fucking love Bayonetta 3 because it's stylish and it's sexy and it's big and it's cumbersome and it's only AA and it's full of rough edges and it's a fucking video game. More than a lot of titles on this list, it's just a video game. It's just, let's have a big multiverse story that's just an excuse to bash toys together. Fucking kaijus hitting each other. You're playing as a spider running up the sides of buildings that are falling apart. You're fighting dudes on a cruise ship that's then there's a big octopus, looks like a Super Mario Sunshine boss. And then I'm in Egypt and I'm playing as Bayonetta, and Bayonetta's cool and one of my favorite video game characters. And it is just, it's very similar to my love of another very similar game, which is DMC5, which just says, let's throw caution to the wind. And let's just see what happens if. To me, Bayonetta is a game that asks, what if? And nobody ever said, let's not do that. And that results in an experience that can be fairly uneven. But to me, all of those rough edges are what makes the game so textured. And so I totally loved my time with Bayonetta 3.
It's like Pokemon. Yeah, no, it's a game that I wish we had our conversation about. Notoriously, we had a conversation about lengthy and in-depth conversation about Bayonetta 3, where I was pretty critical of the game. Yeah. It is currently sitting at my 100th favorite game that I played this year. Just to go to show how many fucking games I played. But that's how I feel about Sonic Frontiers and obviously Pokemon Violet and Legends Arceus. Yeah. So that is an immensely valid perspective to take. And I implore people who are watching this to think of games that you feel similarly about, where you know that there are very obvious flaws, but the experience takes it above and beyond it and makes pretty glaring issues not a problem in the long run. Because that happens often. That happened to me with when I was thinking about fucking Babylon. I was like, hold on, Babylon characters the second half, whatever. Like, but no. But nay, myself. Remember the party scene. Remember the first day on set. Remember that ending. And that's what happens with some of these games.
I feel there's a bit of miscommunication, though, here, because I think that Bayonetta 3 is perfect, and if you disagree, you're wrong.
Yeah, that's how I feel about Pokemon, too. So we're on the same page. Don't worry. Sonic Frontiers, perfect game.
Perfect
no
game.
Flaws.
Hey, it's our channel.
All right. Number 3 is the game of this year. It is game of the year officially. But Elden Ring is a game that I'd like to hear your thoughts on when I finish talking about it, because this is the most talked about the game this year, and it is the game that will probably shape things going forward more than anything else that is released in the last couple of years. Maybe Last of Us 2, Breath of the Wild notwithstanding. Elden Ring is the culmination of what Hidetaka Miyazaki has wanted to do for so long and has done successfully in the Dark Souls franchise and spinning off into Bloodborne and trying Sekiro. But Elden Ring is taking the unmatched combat mechanics, world building, intricacy in world design and map design, and placing it into a world where you can learn about things at your own leisure, but your own leisure is always you getting punched in the dick with a 4,000-foot sword. And I really respect what Miyazaki did here in saying that yeah, people love Bloodborne and the Dark Souls games for the linearity, for being forced to go through these trials and tribulations. Like, get good because you can't see the rest of the game otherwise. But what Elden Ring does is say, yes, that's true, but also, if you want, go somewhere else. And that
Yeah.
really made this game so remarkable to me, because not only did Limgrave, not Limgrave, that's one of the areas. Got the Worlds Between. That's what it's called. The Worlds Between feels much more like an actual place with like people and
Yeah.
cities that are like spaced out realistically in like a history, more so than the corridors that Yarnum and the worlds of the Dark Souls series are based on, because it's open world. But it has a more video gamey feel to it, because everything feels so meticulously placed. But it's so ungodly fucking big. You spawn on this map, like, damn, this is pretty big. Guess what, fucker? That's only like a sixth of the map, bitch. And you're gonna be fighting guys that are 10,000 times the size of you, and you're gonna ride down an elevator in a well somewhere, and you're in a whole nother area of map with stars on the sky, and the art direction is so beautiful. It's some of the greatest architecture I've ever seen, and the characters in the world are so fascinating. But it was too big for me, frankly.
Yeah.
It's a game I'd love to have under my belt. I love the fact that I beat Bloodborne and I beat Dark Souls, two of my favorite games of all time. I don't know if I will ever finish Elden Ring, but the time that I spent with it and the gameplay design philosophy that has been unlocked here for other people to take inspiration from is, I think, worthy of this game being up there in the conversation of most influential games of all time. One of the best games of all time. I mean,
Yeah.
ungodly fucking praise for this game. And deserving all of the Game of the Year awards, even if it's not my personal number one.
Yeah, I played it for probably 12 hours or so. And I loved it because it was silly. I think Elden Ring is such a silly game. I'm finding like mystical tortoises and stuff, or like I'm falling down a hole.
Oh,
And
the little
like
dunce cap tortoise. That's funny.
there's just like a big bear hanging out down there, and I gotta hit him. And like that sounds
Yeah.
reductive, but ultimately, I think Elden Ring for me was this sort of like very video gamey, like Zelda NES style idea
Yeah.
of what if we just made a world that's full of just shit for you to find. And my favorite
Mm-hmm.
parts of playing Elden Ring was just finding stuff. I, I,
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think I really don't have any ground to criticize the game on. Really, what stopped me from playing was the convergence of my PS5 breaking and me running out of
Mm-hmm.
time just in life.
Yeah.
I'm actually about to die, is what I mean when I say that. No, but I really do think it's a game similar to Metroid Prime, wherein when I play it at the right time, it'll be one of my favorites of all time. Because
Yeah.
it sort of showed to me what I didn't like in Sekiro very much. Because I still don't like the
Mm-hmm.
combat that much. That's very subjective. It's just
Yeah.
not how I like to play. I don't like parries. That just goes for a different style of gameplay than I prefer. But it's
Mm-hmm.
that sense of exploration that is so strong and so special and so just goofy and irreverent and full of just like little guys. I love a game with a lot of guys.
Yeah.
Sometimes a lot of guys. So
Mm-hmm.
Elden Ring is deserving of all the praise it got. It's just not necessarily my cup of tea right now, but it might be.
Yeah. It might be. It'd be really fascinating for it to be for you. And guess what? We got another goddamn game from FromSoft coming next year.
Yeah. Number
Okay.
twos. These are two big ones. Tucker, I
Yeah.
told a lie much earlier in this video when I said that I hated Kirby and
You do
Forgotten
this
Land.
every goddamn year.
Kirby and
was
Forgotten
lying.
Land.
Fuck.
It is one of my favorite games Nintendo's ever put out. It really surprised me. Not that I didn't think I was going to enjoy it, but I didn't know that I was going to love it to the extent that I did. So I was a little bit hesitant
Yeah.
about various things, about leaving Dreamland and them this being their first time in 3D. I was like, well, I'm curious to see how this shakes out. But to your point from before, I think they polished it so acutely on the first try that I'm just stunned.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's full of so many wacky ideas I love. Car mouth, mouthful mode in general. All,
I can't believe I didn't bring that up. I love
yeah,
mouthful mode so fucking
it's
much.
so silly. But it also asks you to interact with the levels in such unique ways. The game
Ooh,
is
I'm bumping.
they
I'm bumping.
yeah the game is built so intentionally in every facet to it's like Kirby float, but it can't float too high because we want you to have to solve environmental challenges and engage with your environment in these ways, and it feels
Yeah.
so cohesive and smart. And I love the hub world, and it's also woven back onto itself. And that post game is so good, and it makes copyability so rich in this clever way
Yes.
of upgrading
Yes.
them and making them not just stronger but different and visually interesting. And I love platformers, and I love 3D platformers, and I wish Nintendo made more of them. right? Or
Yeah.
publish more, because obviously it's a HAL game. I know Nintendo EPD, shut the fuck up. I'm speaking in generalizations there. Just want more 3D platforms out of Nintendo, and to me, this is why, because you give your team the time they need, and they make this. It's amazing. It's
Yes,
whimsical.
exactly.
It's whimsical. It makes me happy, and I'm
It's
gonna be
so
honest with
easy to
you.
imagine a
Yeah.
world. Sorry, finish.
No, I'm just. I was gonna say is. Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. I am not happy a lot of the time in my life, which is like, is this a dark thing I'm saying? Yes, but when a game can just make me unabashedly happy, that means a whole hell of a lot. And often I've played so many Nintendo games that I feel cynical about, that modern Nintendo games don't always make me happy in the way that Kirby did. But it did. I
Yeah.
just loved being in that world. It's so squishy and comfortable and funny and full of little puzzles
Mhm.
and things to find treasures and little trophies and big post games, and I love it. It's exactly why I like Nintendo so much. It's exactly why that company has
Absolutely.
meant more to me than any other company in my entire life. Love Forgotten
Yeah.
Land.
I love brands.
I
I love
love
multi-million dollar
brands.
companies.
They
Brands.
care about me as a person.
What I was gonna say is I think the reason why this game did surprise me and does continue to blow me away the more I think about it is it's so ungodly easy to imagine a world where they're like, hey, we've been doing 2D platforming Kirby games that are, maybe they have a new idea or two. We've been doing this for a long time, and Nintendo's like, yeah, they sell pretty good. How make another one of those, and they don't give them the time. 2 years after fucking Star Allies, we get Kirby visits the mall, and it's fucking issues like 2D platforming in a mall.
Yeah.
And actually, he does visit a mall in this. In Forgotten Lands. It's a true story. But instead, they gave them the time. I mean, this was probably the longest time between mainline Kirby games that had ever happened, and it paid the fuck off because they weren't rushed, and they just did what they needed to get this game polished and become one of the crowning jewels of the Switch's library, but also HAL's entire career.
Yeah, you're
Godspeed,
totally right.
Kirby. You fucking did it.
And there's just all kinds of. I like silly guys. I think that's what made clear for this video. But Goramondo, what a great guy he is. I love them all. I love all the motifs. I love everything.
I wish Elfilin was a little sillier though.
Yeah, Elflin's not that silly. That's a good point. But Tucker,
whatever.
It's time for our favorite games of the year. Oh, we should know. You have to do number 2.
No, sorry. You son of a bitch. All right. My number 2 is not a game that I'm going to talk about for very long because we did a full in-depth review of it, and frankly, it's been so long since I've played it. I think it's better for you to just go back and watch that video. I don't have a particularly great memory, which is apparent. I'm talking about Detroit, and I'm talking about Immortality. Like, these are games that I played and I love, but like my memory is so fucking weak that I'm just talking in generalizations about these fucking games. But Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe is probably one of my most anticipated games of all time, and I'm proud to say that it is exactly what I wanted. I mean, frankly, it's more. And I was talking to my friend Isaac about this the other day of how remarkable it is that they did the DLC thing that so many people have done, but instead of doing that, they said, fuck you, and here's like 3 times the amount of game than you thought even like could possibly exist. And not only that, they made the Stanley Parable have an overarching story with the fact that you have like required places to visit to like progress and find the bucket and visit the E3 area and see the like sands at the end of the game. And like there's a narrative to that makes Stanley and the narrator characters in a way, and more than just like voices that say funny things, but like they have like a growth over time almost. And what Stanley Parable does that means so much to me is much what you're talking about being a video game. Like it's so meta and so reflective on the industry as we know it and what narrative storytelling can be, that it exists as video games, at least in my opinion, in their purest form. This is a story that takes advantage of interactivity in ways that no other possible medium could do, and tells themes and criticizes industries and builds characters and worlds that can't be expressed through just text, that can't be expressed through watching someone walk through a hall in a movie, or like, just looking at a still painting or listening to music. It is the confluence of all these things of why video games are so special. And it also like talks about why video games are so special, because it's not afraid to be like, yeah, this is a video game, and we're a developer making this game, and it's tough. It's hard to outdo ourselves. And there's such a rawness and like honesty to like, we didn't know what to do here. Like there's a whole section of this like, Stanley Parable got great reviews and people wanted more. And we're like, how do we do more? Like that's the thing that's ever been shown in a video game before. Like the raw, like the depth of the emotions of the developer showing through in like a literal way that really blew me away and makes this one of the best video games I've ever played in my life.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
But it's still not my number one. Bitch.
Yeah.
Screw you, Stanley Parable Bears. Yeah, I do. Because I just looked at your list. It's Captain Rainbow.
Well, there you go. Took the words right out of my mouth.
Spoilers!
Yeah, my favorite game of the year is Captain Rainbow by a lot. I think it's funny because I actually had Forgotten Land at number one until about half an hour ago. When we're in the midst of discussion, like it's just not going to feel right to talk about it and the other way around. Yeah. This at number two. Captain Rainbow it's really an interesting game in a lot of ways. Just its sort of position in Nintendo history as this game that sold thousands of copies on Wii and never left Japan, and is known maybe better for being the game that got Chris Pranger fired from Nintendo Treehouse for saying that it's never gonna get localized. Like, it's a weird curio. But it's also a weird game because it is really it's really inappropriate. And I'm not just talking about the finding Birdo's vibrator subplot, which is like one of the first things you do in the game, but just you meet like Crazy Tracy, whose entire goal in life is to make men her sex slaves, literally, and she wants to dominate Takamaru from the mysterious Murasame Castle, and you literally
this is where you really fell in love with the game,
absolutely
appealing to like your personal tastes and desires and fantasies.
And at the same time, like, you meet the devil from Devil World, who literally says, like, he talks about cum, and he says like actual words that are no longer politically correct to say that I won't even say on the video. And it's weird. This is a Nintendo game, but ultimately it makes perfect sense the more you play it, because it's a game that is very uplifting and empowering and heartwarming and weird, because every one of these characters, they come to learn that they shouldn't be saying these things, and they shouldn't be trying to dominate men, and and all of these things. And it's about telling broken people that they can be better. That's what the game's about.
Yeah.
And you do it in the context of this beautiful little place called Mimmin Island that has a similar appeal to like your GameCube Animal Crossing Island or Koholint Island. It's just this little place full of irreverent characters and activities, and every day you watch the Famicom soldiers march down to the beach to play volleyball, and it feels alive. And what's sad about the game is that you, by making people whole and better than they were, they leave you. And as you are spreading more love leaves you. And it's a really melancholic and complicated emotional experience, and it's maybe the best story that's ever been put in a game published on Nintendo. And at the same time, it's just fun. It's fun seeing all these characters, and it's fun playing rhythm boxing games with a fat little Mac to get him in shape, and it's fun doing all this stuff and these fetch quests. And it's never going to happen. There's never going to be a better way to play this game than to emulate it and get the fan translation. There's never going to be a better way than that.
Yeah.
But I hope that I can, at least in some way, be a voice for why this game matters. And I have a piece that's been in purgatory for 5 months that's written that is, I think, going to do a lot of good on that front. That is apparently being published in January. But Captain Rainbow is really close to being in my top 10 games of all time, I think.
The way you talk about it, I think it should be. I think it's actually kind of crazy that it's not. That also means that you did say it was your favorite Nintendo game you've ever played. So I was about to say, oh, you like it more than Galaxy? You crazy bastard. But it's a game that I would have...
Maybe.
Isn't that your number 3 game of all time? Or who the fuck knows? You're a sick bastard.
I just need to spend more time with it, is basically what I'm saying.
Sure.
Before I make those sort of determinations. But
oh, wait, I forgot Star Fox 64 exists. So whatever.
Yeah.
I forget about that game all the time. What do you want to say?
I want you to do it. I want you to tell me about your number 1.
Do you know what my number 1 is?
Yes, I do.
You want to spoil him like you spoiled me?
Yeah, it's God of War Ragnarok.
It is God of War Ragnarok, and I
should have said Chameleon Twist. I'm a fucking idiot. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. All right, you'll get the chance next year. Don't worry. I'm surprised that God of War Ragnarok is my number 1, because it isn't that often that I play a game that so profoundly reminds me why I love the things that I love, that like cracked into like my, not even like my, top 50 of all time. Like, oh, I love this game. Or, top 25. Like, yeah, this is what they like. I put this as my number 4 favorite game of all time when I finished this game. I since like moved it down maybe 1 or 2 slots. But when I finished this game, I'm like, it's hard to express how intensely cracked. Like, all right, you and I have talked about Last of Us 2. We've talked about how much that game means to us and how much it means for the medium, and like this is what modern, big budget, blockbuster, storytelling focused games can be. And God of War Ragnarok is the Last of Us 2 of God of War. And of course, God of War 2018 was kind of the Last of Us of God of War, so it's interesting that we're getting like a Last of Us 2 thing. But you were talking about with Captain Rainbow that the story is about helping people to learn that they aren't broken and find love and find their purpose. That's also what God of War Ragnarok does, and it builds so fascinatingly from that first game, which is so hyper-focused on Kratos and Atreus and their father-son dynamic, and you got Brock and Sindri piddling in the background, and sometimes you'll run into Freya, and Baldur's there, but he's not kind of not even a character. And it takes these characters that are set up very well, and one of my favorite games of all time, God of War 2018, and just gives them everything you could possibly want from video game characters. Kratos is now comfortable with being a father in a way that he was so scared of in that first one. The performance that Christopher Judge gives in this game and the amount of personality and emotion that is portrayed on the face of this guy that has killed thousands, hundreds of thousands. Yeah. I don't know. I haven't played the other games. Is so impressive, and it's also impressive that he's still not even my favorite performance in the game, because you take Atreus and you make him a kid that has learned more about his own identity and doesn't quite know if he fits in as being the son of the God of War or the daughter of a past giant, and he's learning about the foretold stories of him being Loki and that he's going to be the one that saves the world. And Atreus is wrestling with this, and you play half the game as him, which I know people criticize the game of, but for me, it almost always works. I mean, maybe a little less so with Viola, but also I kind of find it more fun than Bayonetta, so, that's a story for another day. But is splitting up the game between Kratos and Atreus and making them essentially equal pillars and developing them equally and giving the cast so much to do. You collect this group of characters, wacky characters, that all have their own backstories, and you learn about so richly in the top of Yggdrasil, the world tree, where Brock and Sindri have built this little house. And across the story, all these characters that you meet they move in with you, and between every chapter, you sit down at the fucking table, you have a bowl of stew, and everyone talks about what their thoughts are on what just happened and what they're going to do next. And you learn so much about Tyr and Freya and Brock and Sindri and Mimir and Atreus and Kratos and these other characters that Atreus is visiting unbeknownst to Kratos, and he feels so conflicted about the fact that his son is moving on without him, but knows that he needs to become his own man. There's such themes here that are so powerfully acted, and the cinematography of the one-take thing is done even better than that first game, which I didn't think was fucking possible. But you get like 6 characters in one frame, and they're all perfectly framed, and the way they move in and out of frame, the camera's like panning around them and focusing on faces at just the right moment, and the score is hitting. It hit me so emotionally, and there's such powerful emotional themes and moments in this game that I think are only beat by Last of Us 2, in my opinion. That's still the better game, but this is so fucking close to that I didn't think it was probably, I liked God of War 2018 a lot, but I'm like, they're not fucking Naughty Dog. But actually, maybe they are. And maybe they know how to tell a wide cast of characters that are so well acted and performed that it is basically up to par. And honestly, maybe even like it more than, I don't know. This game blew me away so much in terms of, I haven't even talked about the gameplay, but the gameplay is so much better than the first one. You get more weapons. You get a spear that infinitely generates, that comes out of a ring on his hand that's forged through this fucking mermaid and Brock's. Jesus Christ, there's so many fucking spoilers I don't even want to go to. But you visit so many worlds. There's so many enemies. They learned, it's like Splatoon 3. They learned the criticisms of the first game. Yeah, we made a Game of the Year worthy first game, but people still had issues with it. What if we just fixed the issues? More places, more characters, more combat, more traversal, more like they made it what it should be. But you need that first game to know why this game is so lovely and learn so much. And it's one of the defining moments of Sony as a publisher of Santa Monica. This is Santa Monica's crowning jewel, I would easily say. And even though I say yes, Elden Ring is the game of this year, God of War Ragnarok is my game of the year because
the game of your heart.
I finished it. I beat the fucking game. I adore that game so much, and the more I think about it, the more I talk about it, the more I realize that what they did was so special and not unique, because we've seen this done with Sony's games before. We played it with Last of Us 2, and maybe they did a little bit better there, but this is what video games are leading to. Like, what we felt with Last of Us 2, I feel here again, which I didn't know would be recaptured.
Yeah.
Frankly, I thought, like, everything's kind of going to be downhill from here with Last of Us Part 2, but they did. Santa Monica just did their Last of Us Part 2, and I could not be happier about it. Holy Christ. And I was so worried that, like, Cory Barlog leaving, and I can't remember his name, but let me get the Ragnarok director. God of War Ragnarok. My bad, I'm so sorry. Oh God, Wikipedia. Oh Christ. Why can't I remember this guy's name? Oh, Eric Williams. I was so worried when Cory Barlog left, because I'm like, the two games are going to have a coherent. They're not going to work. But guess what? I'm sorry, Cory Barlog, but Eric Williams made a better game than you. And this is like, it's one of the first games he ever directed, which is insane. And he's not like the most charismatic guy, but Eric Williams, Godspeed, you made one of the fucking best games I ever played in my entire life. Holy Christ. I love God of War Ragnarok.
Tucker, it's been a year. It's been a year full of fucking awesome games, I think.
It has. Goddamn.
Is there anything else to say, really?
thoughts?
How do you even end a video like this? Good night, happy holidays, happy new year. Here's to another one, 365 more days of games. Salutations, goodbye, good night, a gadoosh.